Isn't it hard to be a hater? Nope. Easy. Comes naturally.
How's DeAndre Ayton doing for you?
I am the Luka Doncic of hating Luka Doncic. My stat line is unbelievable, but I also have never done it in a big moment. NBA playoff participant Luka Doncic, please. Overtime, 60 stat patter. It was nice that the Mavs did actually get a win out of it this time, because otherwise every single time I see a Luka tweet of a highlight or his general stat line for the week, it always comes through like that Tungsten Arm O'Doyle tweet. Yeah, it's like Shohei Ohtani threw a complete game and hit 7 homers all Thursday night for being the first player to do it since Tungsten Arm O'Doyle in 1809. And Mike Trout is on a record pace once again. Angels lose to the Athletics 5-3. That might not have worked out with all the home run math, but that's the Tungsten Arm O'Doyle tweet. Empty stats, Luka, please. Sorry. I didn't know that we cared about the NBA in December again. Regular season basketball matters now? Interesting. Fascinating. DeAndre Ayton's fine, Beards. Thanks for asking. I don't know how Igor Kokoshkov is doing. He was the former coach to Luka Doncic in Europe. And then he was the Phoenix Suns head coach when they had the number 1 overall pick in the year that they selected DeAndre Ayton over Luka Doncic with the first overall pick. Robert Sarver, disgraced Suns owner, seemed to really like the fact that DeAndre Ayton played his 1 year of college basketball at Arizona. And so they took DeAndre Ayton. And how many finals has Luka been to, Beards? How many? 0. 1 less than DeAndre Ayton. Didn't have a retort for that one, did you?
Just like they didn't have a retort for when Luka sent them home in the playoffs.
We've seen
what
the
was
mountain.
That final score of that 60 points?
We've seen that mountaintop in Phoenix. We haven't actually been to it, but we've seen the top. We got one Giannis Antetokounmpo length away from being on the mountaintop. What's Luka won? Where's Luka's Western Conference championship trophy? Did they give out rings for that? I think they do. Where's Luka's Western Conference ring? Regular season stat lines. Anyway, I'm Joshua Brisco. That's Beards McFly on the other side of the glass. Jason Anderson is out today. He'll be back in tomorrow. We'll do our usual helping of Chiefs talk. We've got some interesting Royals news. Some of it expected, some of it very much not expected. We got Chiefs pressers coming around later today as the team prepares for the Denver Broncos, a team that just fired their head coach, Nathaniel Hackett, the day after Christmas. So it'll be interesting to hear again from Andy Reid. He mentioned it a little bit. Was asked about it right as it was happening. And he spoke to the media on Monday. But we'll hear from Andy Reid and Patrick Mahomes and somebody else at the podium in all likelihood at around 11:45 after we talk to Cynthia Frelund of NFL Network. Mick Shaffer will join us in studio you want to talk about picking at scabs. Beards put Luka in my ears for the intro. I'm going to ask Mick about the 1-2 whammy of Oklahoma State's bowl performance, followed up by Mike Gundy's post-game performance, and then we'll ask him about seafood. We'll make it a 1-2-3, a triple whammy, as they say. That's more or less the rundown for the show. There's a lot of stuff in the NFL world that I think is unendingly interesting, that touches all points of the AFC West, from the Chargers actually, clinching their playoff spot, to the Broncos in total disaster mode, to the Chiefs right now putting together a defensive performance that you can, for lack of a better term, be proud of. And I just want to mention the Royals news first because I think we may hear from many of the relevant players involved later in the day, so we'll see if we end up getting all of this in earnest. But the Jordan Lyles deal is official for the Royals. They're going through that in a press conference that is either happening now or will be happening later, and we'll bring you some interesting clips from that. If JJ Picollo brings something to the table, or if Jordan Lyles says anything terribly interesting. But the corresponding move when the Royals added Jordan Lyles officially this morning was to designate Ryan O'Hearn for assignment. DFA Ryan O'Hearn. Now, especially if you're a longtime listener of The Zone, just one clip, Beards, with today's date from Matt Quatrero. We may get to it. We probably won't use that early on here anyway because it's kind of in the weeds, but we'll circle around it. Beards, it might not have today as the edited date, but it's got today as the date at the beginning of the file. Sometimes it's finicky like that. So if you're a longtime listener of The Zone, predating even my joining here, I am not the resident Ryan O'Hearn hater between the hours of 10 and 2. But as I already mentioned, Jason's out today. I'm sure he'll talk about this tomorrow. The idea of DFAing Ryan O'Hearn brings no sort of outrage. He hasn't been very good. He was a good pinch hitter, but the usage of Ryan O'Hearn has consistently been kind of a thorn on the side of most Royals fans for totally reasonable reasons. So why is it strange that they DFA'd him today with this December offseason move of bringing in Jordan Lyles? Like, this wasn't a spring training roster crunch. This is December 28th. Well, it's because Ryan O'Hearn was guaranteed $1.4 million when they signed him like a half hour ago, earlier this offseason. And you know what? Did you find the clip in there, Beards? Let's go ahead and play it real quick. We'll hear more later from JJ Picollo. I'm sure he'll get asked about this. But this was Matt Quatrero being asked about Ryan O'Hearn, and he generally kind of spins it into a larger conversation about the roster altogether. And then the he that he mentions kind of in the back half of this answer is about Ryan O'Hearn. This was the question to Matt Quatrero back on December 7th. Today, they DFA Ryan O'Hearn after he was given $1.4 million guaranteed in his arbitration.
I could speak to the roster more as a whole, and I think what we're going to try to do is use the entire roster. I think we're going to try to put guys in positions to where it's an advantageous matchup for them, use off days judiciously to help guys get rest and stay fresh, and plug guys in and kind of use them on more of a fluid rotation. So I would anticipate him getting more at bats than he probably had last year, and being a big part of the team, whether it be off the bench or in advantageous matchups, on any given night.
First thing, to avoid arbitration, misspoke on the $1.4 million O'Hearn. I was avoiding arbitration to give him $1.4 million guaranteed. That was in November. Quatrero there talks about, using more of the roster. That all stands regardless of who the player is. That makes sense. But then there's kind of that pause and collection, and we expect him to maybe even have a larger role for this team this year. Whoa, okay, are you sure? Now, look, if you don't like this guy and you think you've got him on the roster right now for rounding error purposes, then you're not going to give that away a month before you think you may end up needing to make a move. And also, they could still make a trade with O'Hearn even after the DFAing today. But what I'm a little bit curious about now isn't even just the specifics of what happened in the Ryan O'Hearn conversation. How did he get $1.4 million in November? Do they think they have a trade partner now? And if that's the case, maybe that helps. I imagine you would be damaging your own leverage a little bit, but just you want somebody to take the guy, all right, fine. But what changed from November to now? Did anything change from December 7th to now? And really, what are we learning about this new era of Royals leadership? That's the big picture question that I'm a little more interested in than all the specifics of $1.4 million. It's kind of funny because $1.4 million to like virtually anyone is a life-changing amount of money. And for a billionaire paying a pinch hitter, it's a rounding error. But with that being said, this was tweeted out yesterday from Todd Palmer of KSHB 41. He tweeted, the Royals are still interested in bringing back Zach Greinke for another season, but the market price has escalated substantially this offseason. Remains to be seen if the sides can reach an agreement, per senior advisor to GM Mike Arbuckle at the Ban Johnson BSB banquet. Then this from Randy Gizzarelli on Twitter this morning. He said, tendering O'Hearn a contract only to release him as soon as you sign a free agent is a weird move. It suggests internal disagreements within the Royals front office, which, given the sudden addition of an analytics-friendly contingent, is sort of understandable? Question mark? The question mark was Randy's, not mine. Although I might add a second one. I'm not all that interested in getting into the nitty-gritty of the roster construction the week between Christmas and New Year's when we've got Chiefs football on the horizon and some interesting things going on with the defense. So I'm not going to dilly-dally here forever. But was there some sort of internal disagreement on Ryan O'Hearn? If so, I would ask who won, but I think we know the answer to that. And I would ask what John Sherman thinks about that, but I think we have enough data at this point to know who he's paying, who he's no longer paying, and who and being willing now to pay Ryan O'Hearn to not be on this team. But then who might be a little bit trigger shy on Zach Greinke? If they're still in on that market, if they're still saying, you know what, maybe it's more innings eating arms in general. Maybe it's specifically we want Zach Greinke back. But if he's been priced out, is there any spot in free agency for the Royals to find some value? Is this going to be a year where they do not sign large deals to longer lengths of time, even though they're not on the Chiefs 1 year plan that we've seen now the last couple off seasons for kind of the bottom of the roster guys? But I don't think we have enough information to have a conclusion on some of this stuff today. I'm not saying, oh boy, they signed Jordan Lyles, I don't love that contract, and they DFA'd Ryan O'Hearn after giving him $1.4 million in November. Boy, this front office is already lost. I'm not saying that at all. But I want to remember this conversation, this data point, this roster shuffling today. I want to remember this as the offseason progresses, when the regular season begins, next offseason, when we're having the conversations about what is this team built of, and how are we going to see decisions get made by this front office? How will it be different than the last administration, despite having at least one of the main key, really having multiple main key characters? But JJ Piccolo is kind of, I think unfairly, is going to have to shake off a little bit of that he's Dayton's guy kind of reputation that you just get by proximity. I don't necessarily think he has to prove to you that he's not Dayton Moore. But some fans are just seeing an internal hire. It's more complicated than that, more interesting than that, but I get it. And more importantly, I just want to figure out how this team is going to function in this new era with what appears to be a legitimately new direction. But I wouldn't want to pay anybody $1.4 million in November, only to realize that by the end of December, there's no spot for him in my business anymore. So we might get some more clarity. There might be more clarity coming on that as we speak. We'll hear from JJ Picollo later on, just if we can get any more light sort of shined on that. But I thought it was worth mentioning at the top of the show because it's news that Jordan Lyles and that deal is official. It's arguably bigger news because we knew the Lyles one was coming. Bigger news that Ryan O'Hearn DFA'd as the corresponding move. Again, he could still get traded. This could still, and if he doesn't, at the end of that period, the Royals will be on the hook for that $1.4 million that they gave him in November. And I want to write it down on a sticky note, put it up on the desk, and then when we see that sticky note again another month or two, or maybe another year or two, just to see if there's anything that we've learned about where the compass is pointing now. Specifically, I do hope that JJ talks about what changed the last couple of months in specifically the O'Hearn department. But I'm guessing that will come with time, with pressers, and as the offseason rolls on, maybe we'll start to get a little bit of a clearer picture. But that's pretty much all the baseball that I want to talk, at least right now, at least for this segment. Maybe we get JJ later on. We can see if there's some clarity. But in the meantime, I'd like to stretch my legs. I'd like to take a little break, and I'd like to come back and talk about the Chiefs' defense. I hope that's all right with you. I imagine it probably is, because here's the good news, everybody. It was better against Seattle. We all saw that. But I think it was better in sustainable ways. I'll try to talk you into believing in me next.
Want to see more of The Zone? Watch the show live on the Sports Radio 810 WHB Facebook, Twitter, YouTube, and Twitch. The Zone with Jason Anderson.
Talked a lot of Royals today.
Sorry.
Weekdays from 10 to 2 on Sports Radio 810 WHB.
Yeah, fair enough, Beards. That's fair. Look, I didn't think we were going to spend one breath on baseball today. I also didn't expect to open up Twitter and see that they had DFA'd Ryan O'Hearn. A sport that never sleeps.
Not even a month after signing him.
Baseball might be the sport that usually sleeps. I don't think that energy quite transfers the same way it does around the NFL. I'm Joshua Brisco. Jason Anderson is out today. Beards McFly, though, back on the other side of the glass. Cynthia Frelund of NFL Network will join us here in about half an hour. Then Chiefs pressers in about an hour from now. I want to talk about the Chiefs defense again, though. It ended up being the place we started the post-game show. We talked about it some yesterday as well. But I always feel good when I see something on the screen or on the field or whatever. And then I later find out that the incomparable Seth Kaiser sees some of the same things. This also is true for the wonderful crew at KCSN. A lot of the guys around here that do the real film work that sometimes makes me feel smarter, sometimes makes me feel dumber. Whenever we're seeing the same things, it gives me a little bit of confidence that my eyes aren't betraying me anymore. Because football is really good at that. Football is really good at making your eyes lie to you. There's only so many things you can track at once, and there are so many moving parts. I saw football Twitter today really first catching a glimpse of the fact that Danny Shelton was dropping back in coverage at times against the Seahawks. You can keep your Revis Island. I want my Danny Continental Shelton. That's my CB1. Revis Island, Danny Shelton Continent. Shut him down. PFF gave him a 100 coverage grade. I don't know if that's true, but if it's not true, I'm going to write them a very strongly worded letter so that I think he deserved it. He deserves to be able to get coverage incentives in his next contract. But the main thing from the defense, all of that being said, about how good the whole point of the NFL is to confuse the eyes of your opponent. So confusing the eyes of the person watching the game makes a lot of sense. But I saw a few things that we talked about on post, we talked about yesterday, and then I read Seth's story later yesterday up on the Chief in the North newsletter, mnchiefsfan.substack.com. Free pub because God knows Seth's earned it. I believe he's on the program with Sterling Holmes on Monday, this edition of the program this week. Anyway.
On a Monday?
Yeah. Sterling was filling in on Monday. And I believe he got Seth out of his Minnesotan hibernation. I'm going to check that out on the podcast feed or whatever. But the two things that really jumped off the screen to me during the game against the Seahawks were two things that we had been so desperate to see from this defense. I think it's the reason that it was evident when it showed up. It was speed to the football and aggressiveness to the football more than anything else. That was sort of my summary of it. Where you saw literally all four of your starting corners. I'm including 3 rookies in that group. I need to grab the exact snap counts actually while I'm thinking about it. And see where the rookie corners all landed. But L'Jarius Sneed, Trent McDuffie, Joshua Williams, Jalen Watson, all of them had impact tackles in this game. Not just dragging a dude down after the catch. But specifically plays at and behind the line of scrimmage, or at the very least, plays behind in front of the first down marker to put the Seahawks in behind the sticks situations on 3rd and 4th downs. And I just know if you've watched the Chiefs play the Bengals, you know that those things can't be taken for granted. It was in part, hey, L'Jarius Sneed following DK Metcalf around. DK got a couple of catches. He's an alien. That makes a lot of sense. But it was catch and immediately to the ground. No meaningful yards after the catch in that game. Not substantial ones, at least. You never got one of those plays that was like a 6-yard little crosser that all of a sudden was a 65-yard touchdown. This didn't happen. On the other side, you had the linebackers, the corners, the whole depth of the defense. When there was an opportunity to go attack the ball carrier where they were at, as opposed to the thing that made me want to pull my hair out, because this was even like a guy like Nick Bolton, who is a rock'em sock'em robot. It was so frustrating watching him against, I guess you could go, certainly you can go back to the Bengals game, the Broncos and Texans even. So frustrating to watch Nick Bolton, a human wrecking ball, stand in the middle of the defense, open his arms out, and kind of just break down and wait like he was trying to to hold out a fishing net to just wrap up the running back in. As opposed to the thing that he is consistently at his best when he is consistently meeting you at and behind the line of scrimmage. I don't even expect it as much from corners because corners are smaller. They're not as good of tacklers. They're typically not quite as interested because that's not the main part of the job. And frankly, sometimes I don't want Jalen Watson trying to tackle DK Metcalf because that's not a fair fight because DK Metcalf's from another planet, made of twisted metal or whatever. But those guys, if they weren't there to make a play on the ball, they were beginning to make a play on the body as soon as the ball hit their hands. And so 3 things that Seth honed in on from the newsletter, which again, you ought to go read, so I'm not just stealing all of his notes and giving you the good stuff for free. But the 3 things Seth Kaiser lists off is getting after the quarterback with consistency. That's the one that I'm putting a pin in for a second. Swarming to the football, we talked about that some yesterday, where even when one guy wasn't there to make the play single-handedly, there were a ton of great one-on-one tackles in this game. But when there was not a guy there to make the one-on-one play, it was slow down the play, still behind the line of scrimmage. Don't wait for it to come to you and then try to stop it up. Just get to the football, get to the ball carrier, and just slow things down and know that your teammates are on the way. The Chiefs did that on multiple occasions in meaningful spots that produced the results you would expect, because you get 3 or 4 guys gang tackling a ball carrier, you expect to have the advantage there. And the Chiefs just haven't been able to do that for too many stretches of this season. So swarming to the football, and then Seth's third one, finishing strong on tackles and playing physical football. That's the one that I thought was maybe the most evident of them all. Those last 2 parts, I'm splicing it up here, these 3 little verticals of consistent pressure on the quarterback, swarming to the football, finishing strong on tackles. The swarming to the ball and more sure-handed tackling, more aggressive tackling, both in the hit and wrap up and in the spot on the field where you're making that hit happen. I'm not going to go as far to say that it is permanently fixed, because I think that's probably a pretty good way to talk yourself right into a problem no longer existing, which is a dangerous thing to do. But I am massively encouraged by the defense's performance in those 2 facets against the Seahawks. And I do believe that it is repeatable. Not permanently solved, because you can take a step backward just as easily as you took that step forward. Probably easier than you took that step forward. I don't know that you could just put that on cruise control. Whatever happened to make that mental shift if it was in practice this week or last week or something that they were specifically seeing from Seattle, or if it was a philosophical shift they've been pushing for weeks that finally broke through. However it happened, maintaining that level is not guaranteed. But I don't know that I believed that that level could be reached by this team. Because they hadn't done that through 14 games. You'd get your moments. You'd get your Nick Bolton moments. You'd get your, L'Jarius Sneed blitz or whatever. But the consistency, the stifling nature of the defense on Sunday, or Saturday, I guess. The stifling nature of it. You could feel the Seahawks offense getting frustrated. I'm not making that up, right? Like it was continuously, the Seahawks were making the right in-game decisions on these. But the Seahawks were going for it on 4th and medium all the time because they knew the Chiefs' offense was still the Chiefs' offense, even though it sputtered in the second half. They knew their possessions were too valuable to be giving up on them before they absolutely had to. And their difficulty moving the football was so substantial that even, I don't know that this is one that they ended up, I think they had at least one or two that were like around this range. When you get to 4th and 6, you go, well, we got a better chance of getting these 6 yards than we do punting it back, getting the ball back, and starting over again. So why not? And even in those spots, the defense was winning. It's not guaranteed, but I do think that can be sustainable. And more than anything else, it was deeply encouraging just to know that was an option, or that that's something that is within the Chiefs' character defensively. Because if they were just going to be a young passive defense, not a passing defense, but a passive defense through the playoff run, and this is a Seahawks team with no Tyler Lockett, and they've had their issues in the back half of the year. But if you're passive against the Bengals, they will just take what it is in front of them. They will meet you at the point of contact, and then you'll fly back another 2 or 3 yards trying to hold on for dear life. That's what happened the last time. And if you have your skepticism because it's Seattle without Tyler Lockett, I get it. I do. But I'm not even trying to take your skepticism from you. Keep it. But you've at least got to acknowledge with me that you cannot build up a 3 or 4 game confidence interval without having the first one first. That's why so much of this for me is just about where my eyes go next, what I'm looking for the next time around, what we watch for against Denver. If L'Jarius Sneed wants to follow Jerry Jeudy on Sunday, that is fine by me. Trent McDuffie and L'Jarius Sneed both played 100% of the defensive snaps on Sunday. You want to let McDuffie follow Cortland Sutton or whatever. That also would be fine. We'll see how they adjust with all that. But Jalen Watson played 35 snaps, 46% of them. And Joshua Williams played 20 snaps, 26% of them. And that's not even mentioning that Brian Cook played 31 snaps, 41% of the snaps. Leo Chanel played 21. That's 28% of the snaps. Those are at George Karlaftis, 31, 41% of the snaps. All rookies. It would make sense for them to start getting more comfortable and more aggressive at this point in the season. And really, all of the rookies, especially these last couple of weeks, have been really good. Really good. If you want to build the optimist's case for the Chiefs' defense, do it going into the playoff run on the backs of those guys. Which brings me to the third thing that Seth mentioned that we certainly talked about on postgame and on the show yesterday a little bit, but it's the one that I'm less convinced of being consistently available in the playoff run. And it is the consistent breaking news. I mean, the breaking news never stops. Beards, what do you have?
Per Schefter.
Oh, boy.
Dolphins head coach Mike McDaniel told reporters that Tua did, in fact, suffer a concussion on Sunday, and Teddy Bridgewater is in line to start against the Patriots. Anyway, you were saying.
I wonder if Tua's going to be back for the playoffs. Is he going to shut him down this year? That's 3 in one season. What I was going to say is that Luka needs to do it in the finals. I am the least confident in the consistent production of a non-Chris Jones pass rushing option. And this is, as we say around these parts, feeding a fed horse. Because we've been talking about this for like 3 years now, I think. Maybe longer. I can build... If I built the argument about the physicality of the defense and the aggressiveness of the defense, looking faster, gang tackling, better one-on-one tackling, swarming, I can build you that argument out of a big bucket of Legos. To where I think maybe I'm building it out of toys, but I think I can really get some sturdy construction out of this. Not my first Lego rodeo. I can build a sturdy Lego house. I'm building that argument out of Legos. Building this one out of cards a little bit. Never been terribly good at stacking cards. But I'm going to try. George Karlaftis' growth has been consistent and evident, visible to the naked eye, logical. He's continued to grow. I find it pretty unlikely that he will have a precipitous jump within this season because there's only so much season left, but it makes me pretty optimistic about his continued growth through another offseason going in the next year. And also, he can be a useful part of this pass rush. I mean, he is a useful part of it right now. He can certainly continue to be a useful part of it into the playoff run. I tweeted this during the game on Saturday. Frank Clark's issue in Kansas City has always been his production in relation to his contract and the trade that they spent those draft picks to bring Frank Clark to Kansas City. But he's playing some pretty good football right now. And if he wanted to stick around next season in the Melvin Ingram, Carlos Dunlap sort of role, both financially and in snap counts, I would actually be open to that. He played 76% of the snaps against the Seahawks, second only to Chris Jones amongst defensive linemen. Carlos Dunlap was right behind him. Karlaftis actually played less in that game than the older guys. Dana as well. Karlaftis was 4th in edge snaps and like 6th or 7th in defensive line snaps. That's looking forward. I wouldn't mind seeing Frank Clark stick around if the financials and the role match the production. It just hasn't been that way. But he's been playing pretty well, as has Carlos Dunlap. And Mike Dana is a nice rotational piece that gives you some inside-outside flexibility. I'm a little bit worried about how much juice the blitz packages have at this point. How many of those are left in the bag for Steve Spagnuolo? Maybe at this point he's saving the ones he's got for the playoff run, or working on some new stuff for the playoffs, whatever. And I'm still not super duper confident in a 4-man rush built up of the guys that I just talked about getting there consistently. But if you can just have different guys hitting at different points, that creates a team consistency. Getting my beloved Danny Shelton out there, not just to drop in coverage, but also to eat up a couple of double team blocks right next to Chris Jones to free up Chris Jones for a one-on-one matchup. I saw at least one rep of that Nick Jacobs tweeted out. Warmed my heart. Danny Shelton's in the middle eating space, and then Chris Jones is in the middle just eating. I think there's some room, Brandon Williams being a recent addition as well. I think there is some room for encouragement, but that one I'm going to have to see a few more times before I'm a real believer. I am incredibly encouraged by the speed and the swarming and the aggressiveness of the defense that we saw against Seattle. We'll see if it all comes together. But I feel a lot better about them right now than I did a week or 2 or 3 ago. And that was on one performance against the Seahawks. If they farted out against the Broncos and all comes crashing down, that's why it was, again, that's why it was all built out of cards. But right now, I don't know if it's just a little leftover Christmas spirit or what, but I'm feeling a little warmth in my heart. Feeling pretty good about where this defense can go, specifically if, the offense continues. So let me check my notes. Yep, still quarterback by Patrick Mahomes. This team could, in fact, still win the Super Bowl.
Follow the show on Twitter at J810Anderson, at JB Briscoe, at Beards McFly, and at Sports Radio 810. The Zone with Jason Anderson.
Listen, it's like you've seen Mean Girls, right?
Yes.
I'm not a normal mom. I'm a cool mom. This isn't a normal radio show. This is a cool radio show. buy you guys alcohol, whatever.
We're hippio.
You can see my nipples. Through my shirt. Beards just took his headphones off. I think Beards is leaving.
Weekdays from 10 to 2 on Sports Radio 810 WHB.
I don't remember that happening in Mean Girls. Why did I say that? When did I say
I
that?
ask that question a lot.
Yeah, me too. Liners are always an interesting experience because they really make you confront. They really make you confront your past self in a very tangible way. Hey, I didn't tease this during the break. We're asking about during the break. How much time do you need to unveil the Beards McFly Kansas City Chiefs take? If you need more than we have here, I got a little quick thing I can mention.
Maybe
and we
a
can
little
keep it.
bit more.
Okay, that's great. Yeah. Don't forget to remind me at some point, perhaps after Chiefs pressers.
Yeah, that's fine.
Because Beards has a take, and by golly, that I want to know about it. Here is a snippet of a story. You know what, Beards? Could we read the internet, actually?
Oh, we can.
Dan Graziano of ESPN had a story go up today that certainly involves some familiar characters around here regarding the upcoming NFL head coaching carousel. And maybe, this is the year.
And now, Josh reads the internet.
Per Dan Graziano and ESPN. Even though the past couple of cycles have been disappointing for Chiefs offensive coordinator Eric Bieniemy, I'm hearing his name a lot as someone who will be of interest to teams looking for a head coach this offseason. We weren't hearing his name much at this time last year, and he didn't go for a lot of interviews after the season, but I'd be very surprised if he didn't get at least an interview in Denver. And there are a lot of people I talk to about the coaching carousel who believe this could finally be the year Bieniemy gets his shot. I'm not sure what has changed since last year, maybe the Chiefs' ability to maintain their high level of offensive performance without Tyreek Hill, but for some reason, he sounds like he's more popular on the circuit this time around. I'm also not really sure what would be different this year, other than it's just how the cycle works. It ends up being a who's hot right now, and also oftentimes it is really impacted by who you just had, who you just fired. The Panthers will not hire a coach out of college. They might stick with Steve Wilkes, but I could guarantee you the Panthers are not going to go try to scoop up Lincoln Riley. They're not going to do that. They just did it with Matt Rule and it blew up in their face. They're going to do something different. The Broncos are interesting because they're in the recent aftershocks of first-time head coach, and specifically with Hackett, first-time head coach who just immediately looked like he was under the bleeping water.
And also they got him to try and get a different quarterback.
And that was all to try to coax, that's a good point, Beards, all to try to coax Aaron Rodgers.
So they're not going to try and get a good quarterback this offseason either?
So I don't know about the quality of that job. But I was listening to, I think it was probably on the Athletic Football Show, shock, drink. But they were talking about conversations they had with other coaches, and somebody said, hey, look, there are 32 of these things. Everybody wants every job that's open. But I would bet that the Broncos will lean in the retread, another shot at it type of hire. I don't know if Frank Reich's going to immediately get another head coaching job, but that type of hire makes a lot of sense to me for the Broncos because it's usually reactive. So what does that mean for Eric Bieniemy? You're going to have teams that are trying to build new offenses, and if you want to sell, hey, Eric Bieniemy is going to be the guy that is the face of our new look offense for this organization. Even as a first-time head coach, I think he's got that Andy Reid juice. You can sell that. He should be a head coach based off his credentials at this point. But I was interested to see this clip today, or this snippet, because a lot of the times, once the shine wears off, you have to do something to get it back again. And maybe Eric Bieniemy just became more sought after for 1 year of not being the hottest name in the cycle. But he should get a job this offseason. I've just learned to stop betting on that. Cynthia Frelund next.
The Zone with Jason Anderson.
Because there are more better, this is bad English, there are more better quarterbacks.
Weekdays from 10 to 2 on Sports Radio 810 WHB.
It's The Zone here on Sports Radio 810 WHB. I'm Joshua Brisco. Beards McFly on the other side of the glass. Jason Anderson is out today. He'll be back tomorrow. I don't know if that's a gift for Cynthia Frelund or the coal in her stocking. But either way, Cynthia, it's what you got. Cynthia Frelund of NFL Network joins us now. You don't have to really put a gift tag on it one way or the other. I want Jason to be happy. I don't want you to hurt my feelings. So however you need to navigate that, that's really up to you.
I mean, I'm happy and I'm sad equally. I like it both ways. So I'm both.
You could have said you were like 51% happy and 49% sad because he's not even here. But fair enough. First of all, I know we talked last week about the custom Lions jersey, but how was Gordy's Christmas? Was there any like real dog momming going on from you?
I mean, let's be clear. I got only presents for my dog, and I even from my parents received a dog dustbuster thing. So I think he has officially taken over my entire life, and I couldn't be happier about it. He's like the sweetest, best thing. So he got a weird reaction to a vaccine yesterday. I was very worried about him, and I knew I had those weird mom pangs. So I was like, oh gosh, it's official. He's taken over.
That's good. The Dustbuster, really clutch. The best Christmas gift I think I've ever given to my parents it wasn't an on-brand Roomba because I'm not made of money, but it was one of those robo vacuums or something. I like to think that has offset some of the various dog shedding there, but it's just a tough way to live your life in a pile of dog hair. But it's a tougher way to live your life without a pile of dog. You need that in your household.
Exactly. I mean, the number of times I've woken up with him in his dog bed worried about eating a sock or something are kind of embarrassing.
I think those fears eventually go away a little bit, but you've had some dog trauma lately. You've earned that.
I just want to make sure he's okay.
Yeah, that's a good instinct, and it sounds like a very good dog. So anytime it's just me solo here on Wednesdays, I'm gonna just ask for a quick Gordy check, because frankly, I'm more invested in that than I am about half of the teams in the playoffs right now. I'm more worried about Gordy than I am I don't know what the Vikings end up doing, because there have not been a lot of normal football games played over these last few weeks around the league, which is part of the reason that it's so much fun. But with that in mind, we can get Chiefs and AFC specific in a little bit. But even I also not to keep dwelling on the negatives for you, but the Lions stretch, obviously that Panthers game did not go the way that frankly anyone expected, I don't think. But when you look around the playoff picture, is there anybody you look at now and you go, yeah, you know what? I think that they're getting a little overrated or a little underrated, and I think this is their real path, and they deserve a little more of that conversation around them.
They're not necessarily in the playoffs yet, but it's going to be funny when the Green Bay Packers, if they make the playoffs, because it's one of those things where Aaron Rodgers just smugly tells us every year to relax. I mean, he didn't spell it out for us this year. Basically, we were we were pretty sure, but it's always every season he gets dangerous right about this time of year. December for the Packers is touchdown month. So, I mean, that was kind of an interesting, maybe people are underrating that, because remember, you guys out there in AFC country, the AFC and the NFC are completely different beasts.
Yeah. The
difference between the top few teams in the NFC versus everyone else is so dramatically different. And the AFC, some of these teams could come in and a wild card could easily knock off the division winner. Whereas, remember, the NFC South whoever wins that, trash fire, is going to host a playoff game. So, it's just a completely different beast. And the Packers could go into, if Carolina were to host a game, how hilarious would that be? Oh. And the Packers just go in there and dice them up. This could be one of those things where you're like, really? Aaron Rodgers, come January, let's see what happens. So that one's interesting to me.
And I will go ahead and just pull the Vikings right back into it, because that game this week, when I first saw the line, I think it had settled at around 3. Yeah, Packers -3 in Green Bay is what I'm seeing right now. At first, I was gobsmacked, and then I realized I shouldn't be, because both of these teams are impossible to actually predict anything from. But this game means a ton to Green Bay. It doesn't mean quite as much to Minnesota, and Minnesota is a roller coaster ride. So we don't have to run through the models or anything, but how do you even look at a game like this, especially as all of the scales get a little more imbalanced this late in the season as teams have different things to play for?
Well, see, the Vikings are improbably winning, meaning like their secondary is not only really banged up and really vulnerable, but that is not a good complement to the way that they play on offense, right? Like if you're going to jump out to a lead, you need to be able to stop the pass, right? Like that doesn't complement well. If you're not good at stopping the pass, you really have to control the clock, because then you force people into passes that are more the defense can key off of more, right? So they're doing things in this as a crazy, improbable way. They need to like be able to be more efficient with their run game, and also we've seen them have like weird stats against running backs, right? Like you saw Saquon Barkley dice him up for 133 scrimmage yards like last week, and then you've seen games where they've been really good against the run. But really what's happening, if you dig a little deeper, is they're kind of accommodating for their lack of a good or reliable secondary. So if they're pulling players back, then teams are just running. And if they're keeping everyone up front and stacking the box, then teams are throwing. And you know who can diagnose that better than almost anyone? Yeah, Aaron Rodgers. So that's going to be a really tough task for them to overcome, like Aaron Rodgers being able to finally have Romeo Doubs back and Randall Cobb back. And, you know, I mean, we've seen Christian Watson emerge, and, you know, I know he's maybe a little banged up, but, you know, it's like they're getting their pieces back. Alan Lazard is a big key to this entire offense and their running back. So, you know, when I'm looking at this, when you see Mercedes Lewis score touchdowns, not just one, touchdowns, like, you know, like you're like, oh, crap, it is time for Aaron Rodgers in December, touchdown time.
Aaron Rodgers to Mercedes Lewis, I think might legitimately be close to 80 years of total age. I think that's not quite, but it feels like it might be closer than you'd think. So this is kind of philosophical team building side of things, I guess, but we have so many different pendulum swinging conversations when it comes to what matters defensively. I have tended to be more of the mindset that I'd rather sacrifice on the ground some, especially for the Chiefs in particular, because it's almost impossible to beat Patrick Mahomes while running the football if that's the only thing that you're doing well. But it is also kind of interesting whenever you put it in the context of being complementary to what you're doing on the other side of the football, or just where weaknesses get amplified. Have you, I don't know, put anything together over the course of this season, anything new around the league where you've maybe seen any of your own philosophies evolve at all in terms of what is and isn't working, in terms of where you're putting your chips, I guess, defensively, in terms of where you're investing and what you want to stop?
This season, you've seen teams who have really good corners and really good ability. So it doesn't necessarily always need to be corners. It needs to be defensive backs that scheme well together, right? Like it can be some safeties mixed with corners, et cetera. That has been a monstrous advantage. I mean, that is why we're still talking about the Jets this late in the season as being potential playoff eligible, right? Like that is why, I mean, look, I'm not going to say that the Broncos are a strong team, because we've seen an implosion. But if you're really looking at what's the truth about this team, their secondary is bananas good, and they're very, their offense didn't, like, let's take their offense out of it. If you're just looking at the Broncos defense, now last week notwithstanding, but the weeks prior, they have been just absolutely decimating. Like when you're only allowing a team to score like 9 points and you're losing football games, it is not your defense's fault.
Right.
So truly, the ability to stop the pass this season has been absolutely a very, very key advantage. I mean, we've even seen that, like, the Chargers can't stop the run, and yet they're still in the playoffs because they're just getting just enough on stopping the pass, that this season it has been even more important to be able to do that.
We've been talking about the Broncos, obviously, this week because of the Nathaniel Hackett firing and all of the mess that they have been. Just recently mentioned there was a story, and I think at this point it's probably just a blip on the radar, but obviously that Eric Bieniemy is going to be back in the coaching carousel again. When you look at the Broncos' job from that perspective, obviously Russell Wilson is right now the albatross. A year ago would have been the biggest asset. It's crazy. But with all of the things they have defensively there, if you were advising some of these head coaches that are about to go through the interviews, how would you look at that job? Because they do seem to have the biggest key pieces defensively.
Yeah, well, they did trade away Bradley Chubb, so they do need to get a little bit stronger on the pass rushing side of the ball. Part of the defense. They have a great secondary. So the strength of the team, obviously, their secondary. They will get Garrett Bowles back, their offensive lineman that they lost earlier this season. But that you really, what I would impress upon, like I tell Eric Bieniemy, go take the Carolina job, buddy. Like there's other ones out there that are better. Like this one's tough because I don't have enough visibility into the nuances of Russell Wilson's contract as well as the other contracts that are big ticket items like that. But that could be something that's so prohibitive that it is almost I don't even know how you get around it if he's not going to perform at a level that would dictate paying him even close to that. I mean, the way that it's structured, like maybe Chiefs fans need to give a little extra credit to both Andy Reid and especially Brett Veach, because structuring someone with a talent level of Patrick Mahomes in such a keen way that keeps him motivated, as well as the space to give you enough of the other players that you absolutely need to win, that's harder to do than it sounds. And when you're saddled with a contract like Russell Wilson's, that could be many tons of years before it really becomes something where they're able to kind of right the ship. Now, because what that does is it puts a lot of stress on who you're drafting and how you're drafting, and it doesn't allow you to bring in the right mix of free agents, because sometimes you have to pay in free agency, and sometimes you can get away with not. And I would say they're missing some pieces that you actually probably have to pay for, just looking at what's coming out of college and also kind of what the potential free agent market will be. So I think Denver could be that's like a Rubik's Cube that's not just 3 by 3. It's like a Rubik's Cube that's 12 by 12.
Yeah. The phrase guaranteed mechanisms had never entered my vocabulary until that Mahomes contract started coming out, and it was, wait, what? How do all of these moving parts work? And it's a good point, because it provides so much flexibility. This offseason was the first year they didn't do the automatic bonus restructuring that they had done the years prior, and that was for some sort of long-ranging cap math that they had done, and said, hey, we don't need to lower our hit this year. We'll keep it here and stay more flexible later on. All of those elements are fascinating to me. And with that being said, were you surprised that George Paton kept the GM job there in Denver? Because it felt like the two moves that he was going to hang his hat on were going to be Hackett and Russ, specifically the contract that immediately followed before he even played a regular season football game.
So here's my thing. In life, what you're measured on is what matters. So maybe, and part of this, maybe this is, it's not a conspiracy theory, but maybe this is my own, conjecture. Before the last season, we did not know that this would look like this for Russell Wilson. They would have never done it, right? So the first thing but we did know that the Broncos were for sale. And the biggest multiple you get when you try to sell something is if you have a team that you believe will win, right? It seems more sexy. You get to charge more. And, Russell Wilson coming over probably made that multiple higher. So perhaps George Paton is getting judged on his ability to craft that sort of, the sale to make the team worth what it's worth. Now, maybe the Penner Walton family, I don't know how they value that, but they probably are saying, okay, well, they did the best they could given the information that was available at the time. I don't know how long of a leash you get when doing that, but, that was what made the thing so attractive at the time, right? So I don't know. It's always surprising to me, given that we've seen such success when head coaches and GMs are in lockstep. It always surprises me when they don't leave at the same time or come in at the same time. But we don't necessarily know. I mean, come 2 weeks from now, it could be a different story. I don't know if there's any guarantee saying, hey, you're going to be employed here for X amount of time, right? I have no idea.
The conspiracy / we'll call it a conjecture theory, because I think that gives us a little bit of both. The conjecture theory, I think, is a good one, because this was a team that needed some sort of valuable asset, I suppose, that felt like a winner. You had your quarterback, you had your jerseys for the pro shop, and I don't begrudge them for the trade itself. The trade at the time, I totally understood why they did it. I wonder if there will be a national lesson learned specifically on the contract front, just because it didn't seem like that was a mechanic of the trade like we often see, where it's all right, new deal the day that the trade comes through. I don't know. I don't imagine that the secret inner workings of all of that. I just continue to be fascinated by, what might be the most disappointing season in NFL history?
Yeah, people ahead of the season, not me because I still have the Chiefs. I will say that on this radio program for sure. But, people were like, this is the Broncos season, Super Bowl, look at this team, blah, 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 blah. And you're like, okay, just let's pump the brakes on that. Like, well, I'll see it I'll believe it when I see it, and I'm happy to be wrong. But, I haven't seen anything suggesting Russell Wilson has been okay since, his hand injury last season.
And I don't. Maybe it'll get better. Maybe it won't. I bet it doesn't get better on Sunday. I know Jason usually waits until the end to get the model predictions and all of that, but we're here, and I've got other teams more interesting than the Broncos to ask you more about. So what are you expecting for Chiefs Broncos?
Well, typically when you get a change in head coach, you get like this weird bump of like the 1 week we thought was Jeff Saturday. Mm-hmm. You do see it like historically the trend does follow, where like there are some things that happen and you get less like this bump from changing your head coach. However, in this case, I don't have that bump happening for two reasons. Number one, the run defense has been even when things were going really well, the run defense was a problem. And number two, the most important position, which is quarterback, it's not going to change overnight, right? Like this isn't a system quarterback. This is an entire team that's built around the quarterback. So that would require a wholesale change in what we've seen from Russell Wilson. So I think we see a nice, interesting, very, I don't know, maybe some new wrinkles, but nothing that the Chiefs can't handle. I think I have like a 17-point win, something. I think that it's not going to be the highest scoring game. I think the Broncos put up less than 14, and I think the Chiefs are somewhere around 30. So a pretty significant win for the Chiefs.
The head coach bump thing is fascinating because you typically think about that being like the substitute teacher comes in, has a pizza party, but you're right. Like I think that it seems like the teacher that nobody likes is the quarterback, and the substitute teacher coming in to coach the team also just got there like a couple months ago. It's so strange.
Yeah, it's also weird that the defensive coordinator didn't want the bump.
Yeah,
he's like, nah, I'm good right here for 2 more weeks.
I don't think I want anyone to consider me at any point having been the head coach of the 2022 Denver Broncos. I'm good over here where the defense is pretty good. Absolutely bizarre. Also kind of bizarre, but totally true for us around here this week. I think there's a real argument that the biggest Chiefs game of the week, it doesn't actually involve the Chiefs. We get primetime Bills-Bengals. If the Bengals, who we love around here, we're big Bengals fans, because if the Bengals win this game, the Chiefs get the 1 seed back from Buffalo, and I have no idea what to expect going into this one. So what have you seen? I'm happy to spend as much time as you'd like on Bills-Bengals because I'm hoping it lives up to it. What have you seen from these teams? And then what can we be looking for on I was going to almost say on Sunday. That's not true. On Monday night.
On Monday. I mean, this is probably the biggest Monday Night Football game I can remember.
Yeah.
With so many consequences and so many implications and 2 teams that are strong Super Bowl contenders. Like, this is a huge game. The interesting part here is that both have some pretty significant missing pieces on their defenses that will come into play in this one. So for the Bills, all season long, I think they had Micah Hyde for, I want to say 2 or 3 games, but certainly not more than 5 games. And Micah Hyde being gone is huge, especially when you pair that with Von Miller being gone. So those 2 players in tandem, that's a big loss. Now, on the other side, for Lou Anarumo's defense, now this defensive coordinator, also someone who should be in head coaching consideration as well. Yeah. I mean, Chidobe Awuzie has been gone, their corner. I think he left week 7 or 8, torn ACL. That's their best corner. That's a big problem because passing in the AFC just, oh my goodness, that is a nightmare. Plus, on their front, I mean, we've seen injuries in and out of the lineup for Trey Hendrickson, Sam Hubbard. Like, they will potentially, maybe they'll be playing, but they're not it'd be hard for me to say that reconcile that they're 100% because it feels like you're always getting this laundry list of Bengals players with some sort of injury or some sort of concern. So the reality is this one will likely come down to who can adapt to the missing pieces on the opponent's defense the best, right? Like, are you going to be able to exploit the fact that 2-safety shell is not even close to the same for Joe Burrow, right? Is Leslie Frazier going to be able to come up with something to overcome no Micah and no Von Miller? Yes, the Bills will still bring the heat up front. And, of course, La'el Collins, who is now out, that's a big loss for that O-line. But we know Joe Burrow is good under pressure, and we know Joe Burrow this season hasn't been taking sacks like he usually did last year. So he's been smarter about making those decisions. So when I'm looking to see the opportunity in this one, it will be who can get their receivers, like is the Gabe Davis, Stephon Diggs situation able to exploit those cornerbacks and defensive backs that are still there and the missing piece of Cheeto, or on the other side is Jamar Chase and T. Higgins. Are they going to be able to take the deep ball and just absolutely get behind that defense in a way where, they're like, where's Micah Hyde? We don't know. Because remember, Tre'Davious White missed 10 games, and he still doesn't look like he's the Tre'Davious White we're used to. Yes, last week we saw a little bit better uptick against the Bears, but, is that a thing?
Right.
I don't know. That one's dicey to me. So this is as close as they come in terms of modeling.
Are you leaning one way or the other? Is the model leaning? Do you ever disagree with the model? Do you ever get a result back out? They're like, I don't like this. I would not bet on this one if it was my money.
Oh, every week at least 2 games.
Okay.
And this one right now this one comes out really interesting. It's 50 or so just because there's fractional points, right? We have to round. So it's 25.6 for the Bills and 25.4 for the Bengals. So I guess 26-25. But, I mean, come on now. That's about as close as they come. It's the rounding does go 26-25, sure. The law, some arbitrary law of rounding creates that. But,
right.
That's about as close as they come. I will say, I do think, a good opportunity. That's my highest scoring game for the week in terms of total points.
Ooh,
so that'll be a fun one to end the week on as well.
That I don't know why, but I had never really given that a lot of thought. The disagreement that you may have with your own work, and that is, I think, literally as close as it. I'm no mathematician, but it seems literally as close as it could be without another decimal and without a tie. I get. Well, look, hey, if they tied 25.5 to 25.5, that would also be incredible. Does that give you any the sort of disagreement with your own model, though? Does that give you any insight, or does that help you understanding NFL head coaches that appear to very frequently also be disagreeing with things like good math, and when those come into game situations? Because I continue to find that largely unendingly frustrating.
I mean, look, it's just like everything else in life, right? If you're going to start a diet, it's New Year's, it's resolution time, right?
Yes.
You're going to start a diet and you don't know how much you weigh right now. You're really going to have a hard time understanding if you've gained or lost weight, right? There's muscle, there's weight, whatever. You have to know your number so you can know where you're at, so you can decide higher or lower probability paths, right? My model, every week I have a couple this week where I'm just absolutely baffled. I have Pittsburgh beating the Ravens. That sounds wild to me. Yeah. I have the Browns somehow winning, which I don't even want that to happen. Because whatever. I don't even like them. But and then they're beating Washington. So it's there's some things that happen and I'm like, what? But the reality is it's really good to have an unbiased, so you create these rules, and I'm using quotation marks, because remember, just like we said before, what you measure matters. And if we found a historical correlation between measuring certain things and outcomes of games, this is just what the math says, right? There's no law saying that because my math says this, I have to believe whatever. Right. This is just, we've done all the math and the correlations, and this has proven over time to be a more unbiased and unfiltered view of what matters, and that actually helps. You can always make a different decision. It's just a matter of know where you are. If you're on a map, you know where you are, so you can know which way you're going, right? There's no harm in having tools to help you assess where you're at right now and what the potential paths are. It's just, your own psychology can get in your way a lot.
Are the Buccaneers the most frustrating team in football in that specific realm then? Because I feel like every time I see Byron Leftwich with a clip that gets around Twitter, it's basically, don't tell me the numbers, I don't want to know the numbers, never tell me the odds.
I'm going to run Leonard Fournette, whether or not it's working or if it makes any sense, and I'm going to keep doing the same damn play with the same damn alignment. It's frustrating because this team has more talent than that, and it's also frustrating because it's hard to see a guy like Tom Brady who has the ability to adapt and adjust, and we've seen it. These fourth quarter comebacks, these past 7 games, he's had, 4 of them? This is where Tom Brady thrives. So perhaps don't make it be so difficult right off the bat. Maybe let him do a little bit more, in the second quarter, or maybe even, the third quarter. Like, it doesn't need to come down to the absolute end for that to happen. Like, put yourself in a little bit better situation. The run game is a nightmare for them, but doing the same thing over and over again, that might be the definition of insanity.
On that note, and then we'll get you out of here, is there something that you've seen? I don't know if you could even speak to it within NFL organizations or if it's just how people handle the data, but is there anything that you've seen where you could that indicates a team or an organization or just a base of people that have the right mindset towards using that data? Again, not necessarily in the biblical text sense, but in terms of the attitude towards it all that you think, that's an organization right there that has a healthy attitude towards all this.
Jacksonville, 100%. Because it's not about, like, here's the thing. There's never going to be, and there never has been, and there never will be any substitute for the feel and the gut that a coach has. You are there for a reason. Andy Reid is a legend for a reason. Doug Peterson, as a former player and also as a Super Bowl winning head coach, he has a feel and a sense of it that's different. But wanting to know and wanting to have the truth and enough information to be able to make a decision that might be counter to when you don't have a good sense of what that intuition is saying, when it's hard to, when you're emotionally invested, when you're in fight or flight, when your amygdala is hijacked. When you don't have a plan going into it, that's a little bit, okay, here's plan A and here's plan B. I think the Jags have the best situation going on where they're saying, okay, here's plan A, plan B, plan C. Here's how we unemotionally plan for that in Wednesday and Tuesday and in our install, et cetera. And here's what we're going to teach our players to keep it simple enough so that they understand, but complex enough so that they have an advantage over their opponents. And we've seen it really come to fruition, right? Like, they're really doing – Trevor Lawrence has stopped turning the ball over. It's been a lot better for him in those situations. That's how they beat the Cowboys, is to not turn the ball over. How do they do that? Well, they figure out how to get play action to work even when it doesn't work in the beginning of the game, et cetera, right? So it's not about being hard and fast with it. It's just understanding that, all right, here's what I would like to know when my brain is neutral, and here's what I'm going to reference when I'm certainly not neutral in the heat of the moment.
Every week, Cynthia, you hijack our amygdalas around here. So thank you for taking the time to do that. And I'll turn a closer eye to Jacksonville. That's a really interesting look at a coach who we're pretty familiar with around here and an organization that seems like it's headed in the right direction. Cynthia, appreciate it as always. Happy New Year, and we'll talk to you again next week.
Happy New Year. Have a great week.
Cynthia Frelund of NFL Network, dog mom extraordinaire, and knows words like amygdala without even having to look them up first to make sure they pronounced it correctly later on. Not that I would have had to have looked up the word amygdala to make sure I was hitting the syllables correctly. No, everyone on this show knew exactly what that was. The roughly almond-shaped mass of gray matter inside each cerebral hemisphere involved with the experiencing of emotions.
It's also a Boston Bloodborne.
That's Beards McFly, obviously. I'm Joshua Brisco, obviously. That was Cynthia Frelund, obviously. This is The Zone, obviously. We'll take a break, come back. Chief Pressers in about 15 minutes from now. We'll talk about some more NFL things when we get back.
Take the show with you by listening live on 810WHB.com, in the 810 mobile app, or by subscribing to The Zone wherever you get your podcasts. You're in the zone.
Defense wins championships, run the ball, establish the run, and ground and pound, baby. Wear down defenses.
With Jason Anderson.
Box scores matter. Hashtag box scores matter. Kirk Cousins is actually good. Put your hand in the dirt.
On Sports Radio 810 WHB.
I can't imagine most people think about this as a quote-unquote skill. That might be a bit strong. But I think with a decent amount of consistency, I bet I could bat about 800 on getting the era of radio from the liners that Beards plays, even when he goes back from the archives. Because that one right there, to me, I think, well, maybe not. Beards, do you remember that happening live?
I don't think so.
Okay.
I was trying to see if I could find what year that was made.
I think that is a COVID liner. Because that sounded like my auditory setup at home. Not quite studio quality. You could hear. I got my nice microphone, but it's a little less juicy than these mics and these soundproof rooms and all of that. And it would have been Rudy running it and cutting that. That might have been a Rudy liner, and I think I mentioned that only to say, think about the mental state you were in, just you, the listener right now, the place you were at mentally, kind of peak pandemic. We all said some things we regretted, I'm sure. And what I said was that Kirk Cousins was actually good.
So the date I have on that one is August 26th, 2021.
That wouldn't necessarily jive with it, but I don't know when it got turned into a liner and all of that. I guess it could. Well, probably not at home though, right? August 20th? I can't remember. I have a stretch of time where we didn't leave the house very much. And then I have a stretch of time that we were here, but not many people were out and about very much. And then I've got kind of like vaccines and the life since then. So I'm not sure. That was my guess as my audio. I don't know, my audio archaeology. Is that?
Yeah, we'll call it good.
That feels like a brand. Like we'll go through your past and figure out when all of these MP3s were from, when you originally uploaded them to iTunes after downloading them from LimeWire. We're audio archaeologists.
Oh my God, a Zune?
Oh, I don't know. I got to get my special tools for this. I got to get my little brush. We got news from Arrowhead, not like roster news, but press conference news. Andy Reid, Patrick Mahomes, Justin Reid, and Creed Humphrey all scheduled to speak to the media today. So we'll hear from all of them here in about 5 or 10 minutes. Probably a little more than 5, a little less than 10. So we'll hear as they prepare for the Denver Broncos. Cynthia Frelund of NFL Network likes the Chiefs big in that game, but has the Bills and Bengals absolutely just a decimal point apart. That game on Monday night. We'll spend more time talking about that later in the week and on Monday, I'm sure. But a lot of fun coming in this football weekend. It's just that Chiefs-Broncos shouldn't be the stressful part of it. I'm sure, though, the Chiefs... I bet Andy Reid, I'm just going to guess. I bet Andy Reid will say they're a well-coached football team, despite not knowing who the head coach is. I mean, we know now, but he's been the head coach for like an hour and a half. We'll hear from Arrowhead, Andy Reid, Patrick Mahomes, Justin Reid, and Creed Humphrey on the other side of this timeout. This is The Zone on Sports Radio 810 WHB.
You're in the zone with Jason Anderson on Sports Radio 810 WHB.
press conference is brought to you by Robert Brogdon Buick GMC and Robert Brogdon's Olathe Kia. Robert Brogdon Buick GMC and Robert Brogdon's Olathe Kia. Visit BrogdonAutomotive.com. And by Andy's Frozen Custard. Andy's Frozen Custard. Enjoy the world's finest frozen custard at Andy's, made fresh every hour. Andy and Andy's, a winning combination.
Reid, Creed, and Mahomes is the plan for pressers today out of Arrowhead. I'm Joshua Brisco with Beards McFly. It's The Zone without Jason Anderson. He'll be back tomorrow. He's actually on a motorcycle. He's on his way right now. He's almost here. So Reid, Mahomes, Justin Reid, and Creed Humphrey as the Chiefs prepare for the Jerry Roseburg head-coached Denver Broncos. If you're just hearing that name and going, who? Excuse me? Pardon? He is the new interim head coach of the team as they parted ways with Nathaniel Hackett. Roseburg has been a coach in different spots for a while. He was in Baltimore for a decade, from 2008 through 2018, as special teams coordinator, which he did in Cleveland for about 5 seasons, did that with Atlanta for a year. But he was brought in with the Broncos as a senior assistant for game day decisions after one of Nathaniel Hackett's second or third game day blunders. It's all very, very strange. This is a team that is limping to the finish line as much as any team has ever limped towards the finish line. I can't wait to hear Andy Reid describe them as a well-coached football team. I know that he doesn't know how Jerry Roseburg is as a head coach, because nobody does, including him. But I'm sure they'll be a well-coached team. The defense is well-coached. The defense is talented. We talked about that some with Cynthia Frelund a little bit earlier. That's a unit that is going to give the Chiefs some real pushback. But even, I remember the last Broncos game. It wasn't that long ago. Even I can remember it. I sure hope that the Chiefs' defense doesn't feel like it takes a step back after the effort they put out against Seattle. I spent the first hour of this show today trying to convince you that some of that growth is sustainable for this team. I really believe that it is. I don't know that everything is all fixed, but I believe that there is growth to be had. And I would love to see them string 2 strong defensive performances in a row in a way that really looks Russell Wilson and this largely completely hapless Broncos offense. Just keep them looking hapless. That would be the only request in my book. So Andy Reid will be at the podium here in just a moment. There were no new injuries to report as of the Monday presser, so it sounds like everyone should be clear there. We'll see if anybody else joins in. Here's Andy Reid.
Well, they don't have any injury to throw at you here. McCole will practice today, and we'll just see how he does. I look forward to the challenge of playing Denver. Defensively, they're number 1 in passing defense, and a couple other categories in the pass game and defensive area. They're top notch, and then offensively, they've got good players. They've got great skill players and a good offensive line. So we've got to have a good week of practice, and special teams they're solid there too. So, and then with the coaching changes, I mentioned to the team that you're never quite sure what you're going to see. So you got to be kind of ready for anything and everything, and make sure you bring the energy in that you need to take care of business. We're glad we're here at Arrowhead. Look forward to seeing all our fans out there. So that time's yours.
When you say being ready for anything, like what do you tell your players? What do you coach them for?
You hit the things the primary things that they've been doing. But you got to keep your eyes open. You just have to be aware of any adjustments. There might be a couple more sideline adjustments you have to make, or in-game adjustments that a guy might have to put on. So we'll see how it goes. But that's where we're at. So.
Could you ever run McCole Hardman if my math is correct, you have exactly 7 more days within the 21-day window. What do you need to see out of him to make that determination that he will be ready?
Yeah. So as the week went on, he got a bit tired and sore, and I think that was good. He worked his way through what he needed to get through, and now it's a matter of getting him in a game. And so I presume, unless there's a setback, I presume he'll be there. But that's where we're at right now.
Have you ever run across Jerry Roseberg and ever had a chance to meet him and talk to him?
I have. He actually worked for John Harbaugh for a number of years. One of the top special teams coaches in the NFL. And a good football coach, period. But he was a tremendous special teams coach. Good guy.
Andy, Clyde, is his clock anywhere close to being started here?
Yeah, he's not ready yet. I mean, he's not. He's close, but not ready. High ankle sprains, those are tough deals, man, on running back. So he's working through everything, and he's busting his tail. It's just not quite there yet.
What are the realistic options that maybe have Clyde available for the postseason, and maybe even Jody Fortson included in that group?
I mean, there's a chance. There's a chance that happens. I mean, time will tell. See how things go here. Right now, neither one, ready to go. So.
Andy, I saw a stat recently that you guys are leading the league in batted balls at the line of scrimmage.
Yeah.
How much is that practiced and worked on, and how much of that is just kind of understanding the down and distance situation and obviously being prepared for that if you don't get home?
Yeah, Joe covers that. If you're not able to quite get to the guy, to the quarterback, get your hands up, at least one, and and try to bat the ball down. And so that's part of his repertoire of things that he does in there with him. But it's been very successful. And I know before George kind of went on this sack thing that he's going, he had a few batted balls in there, which were big for us. And Carlos likewise.
Yeah, but I was going to follow up and say Carlos is known for that. How much does his addition and his play style might just permeate to the rest of the guys, especially someone like George's?
Yeah, sure. Well, they know the history of him doing it. I know the history of him doing it. He batted a few of ours down. I'm glad he's on our side, and so they know. And Carlos is a smart guy, talks to everybody, so I'm sure he's helped in that area.
Your roster, it's kind of a add-on question here. Your roster's turned over a lot since Patrick became the starter. They'll probably turn over again a bunch more times while he's here. How do you approach that challenge, sort of knowing the reality is things are going to change and evolve while still trying to maintain an identity and still trying to accentuate what Patrick does?
Sure. I think you go back to Brett and the people that he brings in. He knows the offense. He grew up in the profession with this offense, in the NFL with this offense. So he has a pretty good feel of what needs to be fitted in there, and how guys, even though they might not have been in the scheme, but they have certain qualities there that would work for us. So, and then, Pat's ability to kind of welcome everybody in. Kelsey welcomes everybody in. Those are now Patrick's become one of the old vets, but Kelsey's been the oldest vet, and he that's a comfortable thing for new guys coming in here, that they're not just going to be pushed aside, but we're going to take your strengths and let's go, and then you can learn the other stuff as we go along.
And is Patrick's, he's very talented in a lot of different ways. Does that make it a little bit easier to target guys? It kind of seems like whatever their strength is, Patrick will be able to
exploit it. Yeah. No, that's exactly right. Yeah, for sure. He knows. He's got a keen eye on that stuff, and he's done it long enough now to where he's got a good feel on where a guy needs to be and how to get him there, and so he does a nice job with all that.
Are there certain things that you try and layer in? I mean, you guys obviously have clinched a playoff spot at minimum. But are there certain things you try and layer in over the last couple weeks, last week, that you feel like you want to see in action before the
Yeah, I'd like to see all three phases playing well. I mean, that's, we have one phase play well and another one that doesn't, or two of them play well and another one doesn't. So when you get to that point, I mean, you want that every game, but we're there now. So we're in the last two games of the season. So you got to start making sure you're reaching your A game there.
Coach, a couple more. What do you think has led to this late season surge for Jarek McKinnon, and how important has a player has he become for you here?
Yeah, he kind of did this same thing last year. He's a seasoned veteran. He knows, and he's had good people that could get in and play and spot him and so on. But I would tell you this, from a professional standpoint, he's phenomenal. His study habits, and then for your question, taking care of his body. He is meticulous about how he goes about that. And it's a great example to these young guys.
Can you talk about the mentorship portion of it? I talked to Isaiah after the game last week, and he said he's leaned on Jarek a little bit for that mentorship and asking how to navigate through things. How much have you seen from him?
Yeah, he's willing to share. That's again, he's not threatened by the other guys. He's going to do what he does, but he's willing to share those things, and they see him in the meetings. If he needs to use a foam roller, he's going to get down in Greg's office and work, whatever he needs to work, his hamstring, whatever, his eating habits. They see that, and he's willing to talk about it. He likes to talk.
Last two, we'll go Jesse and then.
Andy, big picture, just where do you see Sky Moore in his rookie regression?
Yeah, I really like what I've seen here the last few weeks. He's gotten better every week, better understanding of the offense. We've seen some zone teams and kind of how to fit in the different holes as an inside receiver. He's getting better at that, and I like that. And then he's had a few of the jet sweep things, and he was stretching them out, where it would have been good in Canada, but not here, So now he's hitting that son of a gun up in there. So that's a good thing.
Last one, Sam.
Andy ask you this every year, but one job is open now. I'm just wondering, over the course of this last year, as much as you want to see Eric get another job, I know his focus here is
Sure.
right now, but have you studied to try and figure out maybe a different approach, something that helps him out? Just what's that process been like?
Yeah, so the league actually did that for the assistant, some of the assistant coaches that had potential opportunity to become head coaches. I thought they did a nice job of that this offseason, getting them together with the owners. And so to me, that was the difference, in more of a casual setting, as opposed to I got to hire this guy right now, get to know him. And I appreciated that. That was I thought that was a good thing for Eric. I know what he can do. I mean, I've said it 100 times. I haven't changed my opinion on that. So I hope he gets an opportunity. Rather not have it at Denver, but I hope he gets an opportunity. All right.
Andy Reid said it himself. He wants Eric Bieniemy to get an opportunity. He'd rather it not be Denver. You could say that's because he doesn't want to see him twice a year. You could say it's because he wants him to go to a better spot. I'm guessing it was a joke about the former. We're getting press conferences live from Arrowhead right here on Sports Radio 810 WHB Kansas City. Here's Patrick Mahomes.
Nothing? You guys are facing the same team just a couple weeks after seeing, but a lot of things have happened there. Coach said he gave you guys a message that you kind of be ready for anything. What are your thoughts about facing a team so quickly afterwards, but they've gone through all these changes?
Yeah, I mean, they played us tough this last one. I mean, they gave us everything that we could ask for. I mean, we have to go out there and play our best ball. I mean, if you look at the tape, you see the talent that they have and how hard they play. And so for us, it'll be a great opportunity to play a rival at Arrowhead and have to find a way to get a win.
They got you a couple of times with the interceptions. You haven't thrown one since then, right? What do you take from that game? And you've obviously made some adjustments, I guess. The coach said it's a great example, but fix your own stuff for the rest of the team. But going back and looking at the tape, it's something you probably don't anticipate seeing.
Yeah, I mean, they did a good job of following my eyes, making some good plays on some balls that I was trying to throw in some tight windows. And so I've had to make sure to just take what's there and not try to force it. They got great players. Like I said, they got great players that make a lot of great plays. And so for me and for this team, we got to go out there and play our best ball, and we know we have to play our best ball if we want to win.
What has made Jarek such a reliable weapon for you here, especially late in the season?
Yeah, I think he's done a great job with his opportunities that he's been given. He's like the one this last week where I throw the ball in the flat. You're expecting to we have that touchdown, check down mentality, but when you throw it to a guy like that who can battle his way and get in the end zone, that's special ability. And so for him, he's playing good football at the right time of the year, and how can he carry that momentum into the playoffs?
How confident are you when he's in there in Patrick? Not to cite the other guy, but when he's protecting you as far as throwing the football?
Yeah, I mean, he's just super smart. I think that's the biggest thing. Even an unscouted look, he's great at picking up that guy or passing off the guy to the right lineman and doing all that different type of stuff that just takes years of experience. And so having a guy like that can step in, know he's seen so much, so he knows every single rule of the protection and can go in there and make the block when it counts. I mean, it's a big-time thing to have on the team.
Patrick, I know earlier in the year you said that every time you felt like you threw to Noah, it was a good play. You've connected with him now, what seems to be 10 straight games, I believe. Just how does Noah fit into this offense and obviously playing off of Travis and giving you another option at the tight end position?
Yeah, I think you said it. I think first off, he's a guy that can come in whenever Trav's tired, and he can't play every play, especially at his age. So he can come in when Trav's tired and make some plays happen and still get himself open on some of those Trav type routes, and then being able to block the way he can. It puts teams in a bind where you have a guy that can block. And you can have two tight ends on the field, but he can also run routes like a receiver. So he'll continue to get more and more in this offense, and he's so comfortable in it. He's another weapon that we can have that can go out there and make it hard for defenses.
Patrick, this is inside football a little bit, but that 52-yard pass to Kelsey, he started in motion. You guys throw a lot to a guy that starts in motion. I know you get like a man zone ID sort of thing, but are there other benefits the receivers get or that you guys get from having a guy go in motion and throwing it in?
Yeah, I mean, obviously the biggest one's probably man zone IDs. It also gets guys usually cleaner releases, so they're not necessarily pressed the line of scrimmage, so the timing can be right. And I think sometimes you can use him as a decoy, and you can use that guy in motion to get the attention to him with all that he's moving behind the line of scrimmage and hit someone else. So I think Coach Reid and Coach Bieniemy have done a great job of that, of using that motion to our advantage in several different ways, and I'm sure we'll continue to do that as the season goes on.
The roster has turned over a lot since you've got here. I wonder how do you approach that challenge of sort of adapting to what's new around you, which is like inevitable in the NFL, and also not losing what sort of makes you successful in the first place.
Yeah, I think it's the culture that we've built here. That started before I even got here with Coach Reid and the coaches that they had. I mean, they built this culture of this is how we're going to work, this is how we're going to prepare, and this is how we're going to win. And so I just try to embrace that as much as possible, show the guys that are new how we do things. And I mean, like you said, NFL, there's a lot of new guys every single year, and obviously this year's been probably the biggest. But I think as you continue to add, if you can continue to build that culture, you can continue to go out there and win football games.
And you're going to be here for a long time, and more changes are going to come, obviously. Like you said, this has been one of the bigger changes this year. Are there lessons you learned this year that you'll take forward, and this kind of keeps happening?
Yeah, I mean, it helped me grow as a quarterback, just having to get through the offense, the entire offense, knowing that we're going to move guys around, we're going to have playmakers everywhere, and you got to just continue to get through your reads, get to the right guy. I mean, I think I got in some things the last year, especially where it was Tyreek or Travis, kind of looking back and forth to that. I think it's helped me become a better quarterback, having to move around and having so many different weapons everywhere that I have to just get through the reads. So I think I'll continue to evolve. We'll have a lot of different guys in my tenure here. I'll be here for a long time. And one day I'll get here as long as Travis has been here.
Brett's been pretty open about involving you, especially nowadays. How much are you involved maybe in some of these things in the offseason than maybe you were when you first became the starter back in 2018?
I'm involved a little bit. It's usually like a thing where it's just, hey, we're talking to this guy. What do you think? And I'll look at the tape and kind of give my insight on stuff like that. But I try to stay away from making like decisions on people. I think that we have great guys and great positions, great coaches, and great personnel people that usually can do that. So I'll give my take on people, but they do a great job of bringing in a lot of great players.
It's been almost exactly 5 years since you made that first start. I'm just wondering what stands out about that day.
Yeah, I mean, it was cool. First off, it was cold. It was really cold, and being from Texas, I wasn't ready for. I don't think I was ready for that cold weather in Denver that day. But it was just a great experience to be out there and playing. I mean, it was, I think, more gratifying that all that work I put in. I felt so much more advanced than I did in the preseason before, just because of how much I'd been in the building and going through the process. And I think that kind of just gave me another stamp of approval. This is how you have to do things. And so I think that was the biggest thing, more than going out there and getting the win. It was all that work that you put in the entire year without playing had paid off.
So did it change much for you the next preseason, like training camp? Like how much ahead were you that next training camp just because you had played in just one game?
It was like I learned like a new language just through that next training camp. When I first got here in the preseason, that first year, I was so focused on getting us in the right position and getting the offense lined up and all that different type of stuff that I wasn't even worried about what the defense was doing. I was just trying to go out there and make sure we were doing stuff the right way. Whereas at the end of that last game and then into that next preseason, I was focused on what the defense was doing. I was so comfortable in the offense. I think that's where you take the biggest step in quarterback position.
To go back just a quick talk before, Patrick, did you give an input on Juju last year, even though it didn't work out in the free agency time period?
Yeah, I mean, when they said that we were interested in Juju, I mean, I knew him previously, so I knew that what type of guy he was and how hard he worked. But I definitely like the ability he has. I mean, I think you see it this year is he can do a lot of stuff that we utilize in this offense in a variety of ways. So I was definitely texting him like Coach Reid was, trying to get him to come here.
Great, thanks, Patrick.
Thank you.
There's Patrick Mahomes just routinely, twice at least, calling Travis Kelce a washed-up old man. I'm paraphrasing, but interesting there for him to talk about the biggest step for a quarterback being the difference between worrying about running the offense as opposed to taking that next step and worrying about what the defense is doing, reading that as your added information at the line instead of, I imagine, going up to the line, trying to calm everything down and make sure everyone's in their own spot. Once you're comfortable in the offense, you start paying more attention to what the defense is showing you. I don't think I've heard Mahomes talk about it exactly that way before. There have been clips of him talking about, not knowing how to read defenses as a first-year starter. I put that in air quotes for the audio-only audience. I think that was a little bit blown out of proportion. But some interesting stuff in there. Also, the difference between Hill and Kelce last year to now having the full Rolodex of options. Also, in front of him, Creed Humphrey is the podium now.
It was a big honor. It really just kind of speaks on how well, the offensive linemen around me have been playing too. They made my job a lot easier this season, so it's very exciting. Hopefully, we're in Arizona instead of being in Vegas, but, it's definitely a big accomplishment.
Does it make it a little bit more special that there are three of you that make the Pro Bowl this year, doing it as a group?
Yeah, definitely. I mean, the O-line's been playing great this year, man. Being around those guys, it's just been really fun, getting to work with them all year and things like that. So, I'm very excited for, Joe and for Orlando. They've been, having a great year, so it's been awesome to see.
You mentioned playing great this year. It's kind of difficult not to notice some of the pancake blocks that go on the interior there. Are there any internal competition between you and the other starting offensive linemen for the most pancakes this year?
Yeah, I think everybody's trying to catch up to Trey right now, but it's been fun for sure, man. Just seeing things that happen with whether it's Trey, Joe, Orlando, Wiley, that makes me want to do even better. That makes me want to do the same thing. So I definitely think that kind of gets everybody to start playing better, more physical things like that. Because we all get excited about it.
I know Trey got you guys all the T-shirts last week. I mean, how much fun and camaraderie is there amongst all you guys?
Yeah, a ton. We have a great time. It's a super close group. The entire group's close, so we have a lot of fun. And getting those shirts was cool. It's a great shirt for sure. But getting those shirts was cool. And we have a lot of fun together.
When you look at where you guys were at this point last year, where do you feel like you improved at as far as individually and as a team?
Yeah, for sure. I think we're playing together as a whole unit a lot better. I think the chemistry's gotten a lot better since last year. I think everybody kind of knows what everybody else on the line's about. We kind of know exactly how other people are going to play. So I think we're just being able to build off that and kind of complement each other more and more. It's been really good to see so far. So
you guys have had a couple of really strong weeks, definitely when you look at the metrics and everything and protection. Against Denver, now you're playing them in a pretty short period of time. Is there an advantage to that to you guys to be able to kind of see, okay, let's see how some of the kind of tweaks that we've made in the last couple of weeks since that game have kind of manifested?
Yeah, they're a very tough opponent. So they have a ton of good players on that defense. That defense is very good. So we know it's going to be a big challenge for us going into this game. And, for us, we pride ourselves in being able to win our one-on-one battles. So that's really what it boils down to. And, they have a great front seven, and it's going to be a big challenge for us. So we're excited about it, though.
The screen game's been working for you guys all year long, and that's a testament to the athleticism you guys have on the offensive line. For you as a lineman, where does that rank getting out there on the screen in terms of your favorite things to do?
Yeah, I think it's just really Coach Heck and Coach Reid have been, coaching it up very well for us, and so it's been very fun. They do a great job teaching us exactly what our landmarks are and things like that. So it's been really fun, and seeing some of the plays that Trey's made on those screens and stuff like that, it's been really cool to see. But yeah, it's been fun for sure.
Thanks, Creed.
Yep.
Thanks, Creed. All right, guys, we'll have Justin.
There's Creed Humphrey live from Arrowhead right here on Sports Radio 810 WHB, as you mentioned there. 3/5 of the starting offensive line ends up making the Pro Bowl. The defense also had a honoree as well. Justin Reed from the back of the defense here from Arrowhead.
After the game the other night, just that, things ratchet up a little bit.
Mm-hmm.
And, things definitely get faster and tougher in the playoffs. How do you feel and see these rookies, the young guys that you have in the secondary, as far as kind of realizing that and figuring out that, hey, it's going to get harder the next few weeks?
Yeah. Well, first and foremost, I'm just going to go ahead and say we don't have rookies anymore. You know what I mean? They've had enough experience. They've had enough games under their belt. They're first-year players still. But, that title rookie, we really want to throw that out the window because of the experience and, the snaps they have under their belt, the pelts they have on the wall, and also just to encourage them to take a little more ownership and leadership and continuing to grow and mature and be dominant. As December comes around, eventually January, eventually February, things are only going to get faster. There's no way to really prepare them for how the speed will change other than to continue to harp on how you can get better day in and day out and challenge yourself week in and week out to be execute on all the details. Mistakes are magnified in the playoffs. The speed of the game is a lot faster, but they're ready for it. You know what I mean? And the best way to have confidence going into the playoffs is to make sure that we finish out this week strong and the next week strong so that they doesn't feel like there's any weaknesses going into the playoff structure.
How beneficial was it for those young guys to take those lumps early on in the season as far as like going against Diggs, Devontae Adams?
There's no better teacher than experience. Yeah. And since they've got to be on the same field as those guys and, give them the confidence to say, I belong here. I've lined up with the best of the best and I've held my own. That type of confidence is going to come through for us when we need it to.
You mentioned holding your own. How do you think L'Jarius Sneed did traveling with DK Metcalf this past game?
Oh, phenomenal. L'Jarius is one of our most physical players in the secondary. And as well as DK is a very physical player, so we knew that matchup was going to be one to have your popcorn ready for. DLJ did a great job for it. And that's the type of guy that he is, and we're going to continue to lean on him if a situation like that arises again.
The Broncos didn't have Cortland Sutton the last time you faced him, but you finally returned to action this past game. What type of dynamic does that add when you combine him with Jerry Jeudy?
Yeah, I think that's the second twin tower, in their offensive system. They didn't have him the first time. Put a lot of onus on Jerry Jeudy to take it on his own. But since they have him back, I've played against Cortland. We're in the same draft class. Very big receiver, wide range, catching radius that it will have there. And, it allows them to give Russell Wilson another option there on the outside. So I think it will be good for their offense to have them both on the field. And I think it will be a good challenge for us to defend both of them.
Juan has had some good games this past few weeks, man. What are you seeing from him as he's lined up next week?
Yeah, just consistency. You know what I mean? A lot of times in this game, plays come in bunches. And a lot of players in our secondary are really getting hot at the right time. It's great to have a hot season all year long, make plays along the way, but you really want to start catching fire at this time of year. Juan's doing a great job playing well. He's making plays on the ball. Really should have had 2 interceptions last week. He only got 1 on the board, but we know that was 2. And, I'm excited to see him keep growing and keep, putting his stamp on this franchise in the NFL.
Any thoughts on J.J. Watt retiring with your former teammate?
Yeah, man, it's nuts. It's nuts seeing it come around in circles. I actually hung out with him a little bit this offseason when I was training in Arizona. So I'm excited for him to go into the next chapter. The game will definitely miss players like him. Not only just an impactful guy, outspoken leadership, and the type of passion that he brought to the game, as well as the smack talking. I'm sure you guys have seen the clips. But also all the stuff that he did off the field, too, is just truly amazing. Raising over $40 million during Hurricane Harvey and all the good work that he's done there. The game is definitely going to miss him, but I have a feeling that he'll be all right in the next chapter with the type of charisma and the type of character that he has with whatever he does next.
What did you learn from him?
A lot of it was just not only just the leadership aspect of it, but also the attention to the in-week details, as far as he went hard in the weight room. Monday to Friday, he went hard. He got there early, stayed late. He knew plays in the secondary, being a defensive lineman. He knew some coverage things just because in the meetings he paid attention to everything, soaked up a whole lot of knowledge. So that attention to detail and being next to a future Hall of Famer, you get to pick up a little bit on that energy and that attitude. And it's okay, I can see right in front of me what it takes to be a player that's that great. So I think that was beneficial for me to have him next to me for the first 3 years. And he's a good friend, so I'm happy for him with his next chapter.
Justin, you were talking about the younger guys earlier. Brian made a great play on 4th down against Seattle last week.
Huge.
How's Brian grown this year in your eye?
Huge. A guy that's reliable, very cerebral, as I've always said, always ready in the moment when he steps on the field. On that exact play, actually, we had 3 first-year players lined up side by side, all on that side of the field, 4th down situation. They came through for us and made a big-time stop to get us off the field. So I'm excited for Brian. Good tackler, cerebral guy. Really takes advantage of his opportunities when he does get on the field. Yep. Yes, sir.
Brian Cook's role has continued to increase. He's got more opportunities, and he has been good when he's been on the field. You heard Justin Reid say towards the beginning there, we don't have rookies anymore. They're playing a lot of guys who are in their first full NFL season, but he's taken the rookie label away because they've played a lot of ball so far, and there's something to that. Although Trent McDuffie, who looks very comfortable out there, he missed a ton of time after getting hurt back in week 1, and even still, I think that's a little bit of a, hey, be ready for crunch time in terms of the playoffs. You can't feel like a rookie out there, and also in part because of the amount of work they've gotten done as rookies over the course of this season. Also, my segue between pressers was just very clunky because I was talking about Pro Bowls, and then Beard's like, here's Justin Reid. And I was like, well, yeah, the defense had a Pro Bowler. And they did. It was Chris Jones. I knew that, and I knew Justin Reid wasn't a Pro Bowler, but that was a bad throw. So just to dissuade any confusion there, the defense did have one Pro Bowler named to the Pro Bowl games. That's Chris Jones. Special teams, Tommy Townsend, and then Patrick Mahomes, Travis Kelce, and the 3 aforementioned offensive linemen. I just didn't have a better segue from Creed Humphrey to Justin Reid. I wish I would have just gone from Creed to Reid and then cut it off, but I've never necessarily been known as someone with incredibly smooth segues, except for in the Paul Blart sense.
From mistake to break?
From mistake to mistake to mistake to mistake to mistake to the break. It's The Zone here on Sports Radio 810 WHB.
Patrick Mahomes press conference, brought to you by Xfinity Sports Zone. Xfinity Sports Zone, the ultimate sports hub experience, only from Xfinity. By Premier Volvo Cars of Overland Park, the only Volvo dealership in Kansas City, where luxury and safety meet. Premier Volvo Cars of Overland Park at 78th and Metcalf, or PremierVolvoCarsOverlandPark.com. And by Westlake Ace Hardware. Visit your local Westlake Ace Hardware today. Online at WestlakeHardware.com. Westlake Ace Hardware. Small projects, big know-how. Ask away.
Premier Volvo Cars of Overland Park.
The Zone with Jason Anderson.
Listen, when I finish one half of my foot long, I have a cookie. And
you have a halftime cookie?
Yeah.
I didn't know
And then I
this.
have the rest of my sandwich, and then I have the other cookie. It doesn't work the same if you only have one cookie. I'm not splitting that thing in half.
Weekdays from 10 to 2 on Sports Radio 810 WHB.
Well, I forgot that this was a thing that existed, and then that reminded me of it, Beards, and so I frankly need to make you aware of something. I'm Joshua Brisco, Beards McFly on the other side of the glass. Jason Anderson is out today. He'll be back tomorrow. So if you don't like this story, only us today. So, Beards, you're a sandwich cookie enthusiast. Now,
both things are very good.
That
together and on their own.
Funny you should say that.
Uh-oh.
That liner was specifically about the wonderful folks over at Good Sense, who simply do not miss. We love them, and if they wanted to, I don't know.
They should just sponsor us for the postgame show.
If they just, they basically do sponsor the postgame show without knowing it, because I would say
we sponsor them.
That's
for
right.
Sandwiches.
We sponsor them during the postgame show with our patronage. Did you see what Subway did?
No.
So this is from Thrillist.com, and in an unsurprising full disclosure, I learned about this from the illustrious Munch Squad, a podcast within a podcast about the latest and greatest in brand eating. The sandwich maker is reinventing its signature footlong at Subway. And this time, it's in the form of, you guessed it, a cookie. Inspired by the Subway series' signature Sammys, that's what it says. The fast casual chain is introducing 4 limited edition footlong flavors exclusively at Cookie Way, a.k.a. the brand's NYC-based pop-up that exclusively sells cookies.
Subway's cookies are pretty good.
They are pretty good.
They are pretty good.
This pop-up only was functioning on December 4th. I'm hoping that this post-event bump will make them want to have their next pop-up in the greater Kansas City area. Here's the footlong cookie lineup. The Subway Cookie Club. Stacks of cookies on cookies with a double chocolate cookie base and vanilla frosting topped with chocolate chip, white chocolate, and macadamia. And raspberry cheesecake cookie chunks, rainbow sprinkles, and a chocolate and raspberry sauce.
Good Lord.
The Mexicali, inspired by the Subway Series number 7, the Mexicali includes a vanilla sugar cookie base with dulce de leche, mole, and corn nuts, white chocolate sauce, and ground coffee, tagine, and espresso chips. The Monster, with a double chocolate cookie base smothered in a heaping spread of peanut butter chips, Reese's Pieces, butterscotch morsels, and pretzels with chocolate and white chocolate sauce on top. That one sounds delicious, but I just got type 3 diabetes from reading it. And then we have the Great Pickle.
Oh, no.
This cookie is layered with peanut butter, good, and marshmallow cream, good, on a vanilla sugar cookie base, good, with salty potato chips, good, bacon crumbles, and yep, the brand's new dill pickles. I don't have all the pictures up here. I do have one that I can show Beards, and then by extension, the video viewing audience who watches the show live on the Sports Radio 810 WHB, Facebook, YouTube, Twitter, and Twitch. We're in all those places. It is a foot-long cookie base. It's not split in half like bread would be.
It looks like a canoe that has been filled with other things.
That's right. It's a cookie canoe filled with chunks of cookies and then other various dessert stuffs and sauces and all of that.
Well, that's the choice.
I want to eat all of them. Now, bring the pop-up, bring Cookie Way to Kansas City. That's my new request. Anyway, we were going to start with a Chiefs take, and then that liner played, and I needed to share that information and make sure that Beards knew that the line between sandwich and cookie has blurred even further, even beyond his half a good sense cookie, half a good sense second cookie. Beards is the halftime post-game cookie eater. I respect that, but I just wanted you to know that your options are expanding even more now because of the fine folks at Cookie Way. Breaking news from the Chiefs world. Matt Derrick of Chiefs Digest tweets that the Chiefs have signed former Ohio State linebacker Justin Hilliard to the practice squad. He worked out with the team yesterday. He's also spent time with the Giants and 49ers. Not completely sure if there is a linebacker issue with association there. I don't think there would be. Might just be like a more veteran option instead of a guy like Jack Cochran.
Break in case of emergency.
Yeah, I mean, a guy to have on the roster for the playoff run in case something goes wrong. Maybe the Darius Harris experiment sort of winding down, but you added to the practice squad. That's a depth move. I think your top four, obviously, being Bolton, Gay, and then some combination of Harris and Chanel. Those four guys, I imagine, are pretty locked into their spots. Okay, Beards.
Yes.
You told me yesterday that you have a Chiefs take, and you said, do you want to know it in advance, or do you want to just find out? And I said, don't you dare tell me. I want to hear this Chiefs take brought to the world, live on air, just like everybody else. So, Beards McFly, what is your super serious Chiefs take?
So I figured this out, I think it was either during or after the Texans game.
Okay.
Watching that at home. You remember how all offseason all we heard was this is going to be a retooling team and don't have too many high expectations. They're going to be retooling. They're going to look different. I think that's what this looks like with Mahomes as your quarterback. I think this is a pretty average team on offense, if not for the fact that they have the best quarterback in the league. And if you, for example here, the Ringer has got a list that they're updating weekly of every quarterback that is starting a game. So if we went, Kirk Cousins is 13.
Okay.
I thought about doing Dak because in my mind, Dak is like the borderline of good, but it's kind of just okay.
Yeah, sure.
They have him at 6.
I like Dak a little more.
Okay,
yeah.
we'll play with Dak.
I like Dak better as a quarterback.
Sure, but we'll use Dak for this example.
Sure.
Then. What do you think the final record of this team would be if they had Dak as their quarterback?
I think, in fact, I wonder if I can get one degree more specific for you and just straight look at the games that they won by some finer margin. I like Dak. I would consider myself a pro Dak Prescott person, generally speaking. They beat the Chargers by 3 points, beat the Raiders by a point. That game was sort of weird, obviously, but the Titans, they squeaked by. They squeaked by the Chargers by 3 again. If you just took those really close 3-point or less games, even if you split them, you're adding 2 more losses to the record. I think that's super reasonable.
So, I think this is what an average offense, specifically offense, looks like when you've got Mahomes as your quarterback. Because I don't think there's anybody out there. We're excluding Kelsey from this because I'm looking mainly at just like wide receiver position.
And the group altogether, yeah.
I don't think there's anybody out here that you would say is an elite number 1. I
No.
think Juju's a very good number 2.
Yep.
But I think that's where you'd want to keep him. We're sitting here going, what? Can we have McCole Hardman back?
Yep.
And Kansas City's relationship with McCole Hardman has been up and down.
Yes. Good way of putting it.
So, I don't know. Personally, I think I have arrived at the point where I'm like, I don't think this is a Super Bowl team. I think this is just an average team that has the exception at quarterback.
Beards, I think it's a great take. I think this is an excellent take by you. I think I will even go back to Kirk Cousins as this like middle watermark kind of thing of like
they might be like 9 and 8.
That's the thing, and
maybe on the other end,
the Vikings. Are they locked into the 3 seed? I don't think they're actually locked in right now, but I think
they've won their division, and that's
they
about
did.
it.
They can only fall so far, but right now they are 1 game up on the Niners and 1 game up on the Cowboys, but that doesn't matter because the Eagles are going to win that division. So they're definitely going to be the 2 or the 3 seed, the Vikings.
Yeah.
At absolute minimum, they're the 2 or the 3 seed because the NFC South exists to have the 4 seed.
And one more point real quick before you get
Sure.
into yours.
Yeah.
A couple weeks ago when we did Fact or Fiction, you did the tiebreaker of who would you add to this team. Everybody else said
Micah Parsons or one of the defensive ends.
And I had said Justin Jefferson because I think that helps this team way more than anything on defense ever will. Because I still think the best defense this team had was in 2018,
right?
When they were scoring more points than anybody could keep up with,
right?
Because like the 4 losses that year were Tom Brady, who was still pretty much peak Tom Brady, the Rams, who were flying all year, Russell Wilson when he was good, and then a Chargers team late in the season in that weird game. But I think they need an elite level number 1 option, and they don't have that. And I think this is, by extension, just a pretty okay team.
That is also more or less the end result of my question when I've asked about how many position groups on this team are elite or just frankly really good. Top 5 in the league. I think that list is very small. I think it's tight end, and if you want to make quarterback a position group, despite just having the one, then it's definitely those 2. I'm with you, Beards. I really do think that is an accurate way of viewing where this team is at. If I was going to nitpick at all, I would say that when you have the quarterback, a lot of rosters are Super Bowl achievable. Sure. I don't know if that's favorite or whatever.
But they also haven't beaten any teams this year that I would say are Super Bowl contenders.
And that, I think, probably ends up depending on your definition of a Super Bowl contender. Because I might tell you the Chargers are right on the fringe of it. I don't know. They finally made the playoffs. That's something. But I absolutely think that the story of this season should be, look at where Patrick Mahomes has brought this team.
Oh, you can do this either way. You can do this. The magic of Mahomes is great, or
either way.
The supporting cast is not good enough.
Yeah. It's the same. It's the same guts of it all. I don't. You can paint it however you like. But I think because they've been so successful, I think it forces you towards the, hey, look at how Mahomes has maximized everything around him right now, with an offensive line that had its rough stretches, has had its good stretches, has overall been like okay. Pass catchers where Justin Watson's out snapping Marquez Valdez-Scantling late in the season, and I saw Benjamin Solak of The Ringer did just a tier list of NFL wide receivers. He had Juju Smith-Schuster at like 25 or something, and I've said this several shows in a row now. I think I like Juju a lot. I'm really glad he's on this offense. I think the Chiefs should make a legit effort to keep him around, but I think he's probably receiver 15 to 20 because you would be shocked at how many guys you would go, well, he's elite. It is a shockingly large number at this point. I might grab that chart and we can play that game too.
Yeah, I was going to see if I could pull that up real quick.
It was yesterday or a couple days ago. Yeah, I got it here. Where he goes, elite, great number 1, good number 1, fringe number 1, number 2, good number 2. I think Juju is he puts him in the good number 2 category with Jerry Jeudy and Michael Pittman. Like really, really good wide receivers. Because your elite is this is just Solak's ranking, so you can disagree with whatever. But
can you send that to me real quick?
Sure.
If it's not too hard.
I will. I'll link it to you. Tyreek Hill, Justin Jefferson, Devontae Adams, Jamar Chase, Cooper Kupp are like the elite levels. I think that seems reasonable. Stephon Diggs, A.J. Brown, Deebo Samuel, CeeDee Lamb, Jalen Waddle, T. Higgins, Brandon Ayuk, DeAndre Hopkins, Mike Evans, Amon-Ra St. Brown. Those are your next 10 guys in the next tier down in Solak's ranking. Good number 1s from Solak. Devontae Smith, Chris Godwin, Terry McLaurin, Amari Cooper, DK Metcalf, DJ Moore, Deontay Johnson, Mike Williams, Cortland Sutton, Garrett Wilson, Chris Olave. We are now 26 receivers in. And I think it's totally, you could nitpick if you want. And there's a whole other tier we could go through. Probably not going to, but you can nitpick here or there. I think it would be really hard to say Juju Smith-Schuster is a top 15, maybe even hard to say a top 20 wide receiver, which is just about how many elite wide receivers are in this sport right now. So all that to say, Beards, I think your analysis of that, dead on. I wonder if that will make us revisit the Tyreek Hill trade. And I also wonder how much that line can be moved, because the overall performance of the offense has still been tremendous. But there is an explosive nature to having Tyreek Hill on your team. There's a stress that puts on the defense. I do think that Mecole Hardman and Kadarius Toney being healthy would be really big for this offense come playoff time. They could win a Super Bowl with this exact roster because Mahomes. And they, by a lot of statistics, have been the most productive offense in football without a true number one wide receiver, non-tight end division, because Travis Kelce breaks the math. But I think then the conversation for this offseason should probably be something like, what does that elite number one wide receiver buy you? If A.J. Brown is on this team, they're not even more number one in a bunch of these categories. But what is it? Because you can't get higher than a 1 in a ranking of 32 to 1. But what is this game? What is the game like day to day? What is the easy button for this offense? What does it do for this offense to have a true legit number one wide receiver? It's why I think they're going to keep drafting receivers for a while now. Because you get them cheap, you get them under control, you get them for a larger number of years, and eventually that might be your way to break the math, where you get rookie contract one of those guys. Easier said than done, because Jamar Chase is going too early, but you can get A.J. Brown. Like, A.J. Brown was a second round draft pick. Is that right? I think he was. DK definitely was. I think A.J. Brown was either late first. I think he was an early second. All that to say, I do think that this is a Super Bowl caliber team with a pretty average roster that is absolutely indicative of the reload year. Because I also think the defense next year would be better without adding a single piece. If this is not usually how it works in the NFL, but if you copy and pasted this roster to next year, I think the defense would be better next year because they're playing half a dozen rookies. So there's room. They will improve even as Frank Clark and Carlos Dunlap and the older guys age, and that implies a decrease in production. So I think the investment in the youth of the defense still has time to pay off. But I do think that as we stand right now, the Chiefs have a pretty average roster in 2022, but they have the least average quarterback that's ever existed, perhaps.
So I've got two people here that I've got a couple different nitpicks that I'll throw back.
Unacceptable.
Rob and then John have both commented that they beat the 49ers. I'm more looking AFC than I am NFC in this. And also, if they're playing the Niners in the Super Bowl, that means they've already beaten the other guys, and then this whole argument is moot.
Mm-hmm. And they beat the Niners a long time ago.
Sure.
But yes, that
and
win is quality.
I have less faith in the Niners than I do the other two because they have Brock Purdy as their quarterback.
I have more faith in the Niners because they have Brock Purdy.
But John had another point here on Facebook, which is the one argument against that take is the Patriots, because who were their receivers for all those years when Tom Brady played? My argument to that is
Randy Moss.
They had elite defenses every year. And then the 1 year they added Randy Moss, they broke the sport.
Right.
And I think it's going to be easier to add that one wide receiver than it is to rebuild this defense again.
Yeah, they also did it with most likely the greatest defensive coach of all time. Right. That helps build that. But no, I think the Patriots example is a fun one because it goes back to sport. When you have the best quarterback in football, you can win Super Bowls throwing the football to Wes Welker and Julian Edelman and all of those dudes. Now, also,
But it helps when you have an elite defense.
Also, Rob Gronkowski.
Super elite defense.
Yeah, no, absolutely. But you can win that way. But it's harder. And your offensive production, when you suddenly add the future Hall of Famer wide receiver into the mix, it's for the Chiefs, it's losing Tyreek Hill. For the Patriots, and it was adding Randy Moss. You see what that does to the league, to your offense, to your quarterback, to how defenses defend you. So the thing about all of that I think all applies, it's all applicable, and it's all interesting. I don't think there's a definitive nail you can put in here and say this is the truth and this is the way to do it. But I think from Beards' angle to say, hey, next year, you know what I don't want to see? I do not want to see your first three draft picks all be defenders. No. I am tired of seeing that. Take your best shots to give Patrick Mahomes an alien to throw the football to, especially as Travis Kelce ages.
I want them to have one guy that they can stick with him for the next 5 years that's cheap and awesome and just is able to grow and make the Tyreek Hill 2.0 thing.
Yes, absolutely. I think that a little bit of them thinks that could be Kadarius Toney. I think that's not quite all the way there. But if we're talking about it being a rookie in April, that will also have a long stride on it, I think. But I think it's a very interesting question, Beards, and an interesting way of viewing where this team is at, where they did actually do the reloading and the retooling. And like I said, with the defense, they survived to this point, and now you start believing in the defense a little bit. You never stop believing in Patrick Mahomes, and he's got okay parts around him that he is good enough to bring a Super Bowl with. Totally possible.
They're 12-3 in a rebuilding year.
Right.
Which is wild.
And that part should not be lost in the narrative of this season.
They could be 14-3.
They also could have Kirk Cousins. And then what does this roster look like? That's the power. Mahomes keeps your Super Bowl window open wider for longer, and also he lets it close a lot less in a quote-unquote retooling year. Even in the retooling year, it's a pretty good time to root for the Kansas City Chiefs because Patrick Mahomes is the quarterback of your football team, and crazy bleep happens. I also would not mind Marvin Harrison Jr. He's still a draft class away, so I don't necessarily want the Chiefs to tank. Maybe the Chiefs could trade with the Broncos and get a future first-round pick from them that they're going to super undervalue, and they'll actually be at the top of the draft. Basically, the Chiefs need to go hoodwink somebody with a high first-round draft pick. That's the only way that good teams are getting those picks. But if the Eagles can do it and the Seahawks can do it, why can't the Chiefs? Hey, Brett Veach, go rob somebody. Take off your wolf costume and then go rob somebody.
Want to see more of The Zone? Watch the show live on the Sports Radio 810 WHB Facebook, Twitter, YouTube, and Twitch. The Zone with Jason Anderson.
The Chiefs are pork butts. There's a floor to pork butts. They're hard to screw up. You know they're going to be good on some level, but you need a good rub or even a good barbecue sauce after it's cooked to spice it up a little. Andy Reid is slow and steady, just like that 9-pound pork butt they've been smoking all night in the Arrowhead parking lot.
Weekdays from 10 to 2 on Sports Radio 810 WHB.
We're talking about wide receivers last segment. Could I interest you in a different name?
Sure.
You know, Odell Beckham Jr. is out there, but didn't seem like that was really going to happen. The Cowboys signed T.Y. Hilton. He showed up and immediately was catching passes. Don't know if Odell's going to be healthy by playoff time. Seems pretty unlikely. Could I read you this headline? You know what? I'm not going to tell you the name yet. I'm just going to say what the back half of the headline says, which is, calls Jerry Jones seeking NFL tryout.
Oh, I have one very bad guess that I'm going to make.
Go ahead and give me your one very bad guess.
I hope it's not Antonio Brown.
No, it's not. No, it's not. That is a good bad guess, Beards. That's a very good bad guess, and you've given me a worse name than this one, so that maybe now I can talk people into this one. Because this name, frankly, I ought to call Andy Reid next. On Cowboys Country on SI.com. Terrell Owens, 49.
That was going to be my other guess.
Terrell Owens, 49, calls Jerry Jones seeking NFL tryout. Legendary Hall of Fame wide receiver Terrell Owens this is from Aaron Wilson. Legendary Hall of Fame wide receiver Terrell Owens is seeking a potential comeback at age 49 and has set his ambitions on playing for the Dallas Cowboys for the second time, according to NFL sources. His agent has confirmed that he's been in contact with the Cowboys and other NFL teams. Owens has been training and is in optimal condition by all accounts. He worked out with Baltimore Ravens wide receiver Deshaun Jackson this year, prior to the veteran Jackson signing with the AFC North playoff team. If signed, Owens would be the oldest player to play in the NFL in league history. George Blanda was a quarterback and place kicker who retired in 1976 at the age of 48 after playing 26 years in the NFL. Here from T.O.'s agent, Terrell is ready to contribute and play any role, big or small. He's out. Yeah, we want to bring him in and just run the offense through him. He's in outstanding shape. He looks no different than he did years ago. I watched him running routes full speed with Deshaun. He looked great. He didn't drop a pass. He most recently ran a 4.5 40-yard dash, which was his warm-up. He's a legend. We want to make history and see him break these records. If anybody can do it, it's him. This is all quote from the agent. His 3 Ds are desire, dedication, and discipline. He embodies that every day, even running hills at 3 a.m. on Christmas morning.
Ugh.
Is it okay if I just unironically want this to happen? Do you know how funny it would be?
I'm just waiting for the first time he gets popped by a cornerback.
Yeah, and does his soul just leave his body? Or is he still made out of carved marble? Because if there's a 49-year-old who I wouldn't want to hit me going over the middle, Terrell Owens would be pretty damn high on that list. I imagine he still has abs. Was he born with abs? Has he ever not had abs? He will die with abs. At age 176. I kind of want this to happen. A little bit of, I know that would be it would be all stuffy and serious, and we can't even focus it off. It's a distraction. But I bet he could play a little bit. And the Chiefs have had weirder dudes signed to their practice squad. I mean, they brought Chris Conley back after the Josh Gordon experiment. Cornell Powell still out there. You think let me ask genuinely. Cornell Powell seems like a nice fella. I don't mean to sideswipe Cornell Powell. But who do you think would be a better NFL wide receiver tomorrow? Terrell Owens or Cornell Powell? Justin Watson was a special teamer, and he appears to be Andy Reid's favorite pass catcher on the planet. He was a special teamer for the Buccaneers for 4 years. Bring him home. And by home, I just mean back to Andy Reid, I guess. I think it's kind of fun. I think it's kind of interesting. It's almost certainly never going to happen.
It's definitely never going to happen.
And even if it's not in Kansas City, tell me you wouldn't be looking, if that game's in prime time or if it's red zone, whatever, tell me you wouldn't be thrilled for the first time a ball goes Terrell Owens' direction at age 49.
I'd wait for the Twitter stuff to pop up.
Fair enough. I might make it appointment television. And I know Patrick Mahomes would throw him a touchdown at some point. And then he could say he's got a touchdown for Patrick Mahomes. He's thrown it to Terrell Owens. But here's the other thing. T.O., it's not this hard to get a ring, okay? You could just go to Ruback Fine Jewelry. Visit them online at ruback.co. The holiday season's still here. I propose on New Year's Eve, so you want a custom engagement ring, you go to Ruback Fine Jewelry. They've been serving the Kansas City community for like 100 years. Hal at Ruback has 40 years of experience in the jewelry industry. That's almost as long as Terrell Owens has been alive. So if you're still chasing that ring, take the easy and best option for you. They'll help you fine-tune it to your desires, your needs, your budget, your tastes. Ask Hal what you need. He'll lead you on the right track. Give your ideas. He'll help you out there as well. You can buy straight from them there, the stuff they already have in stock at Ruback, or go for the custom engagement ring experience. That's what I did a year ago, and I am so glad that I did. So visit them online and book your appointment at ruback.co. I'd like to give a ring to Mick Shaffer. He's next.
Follow the show. The Zone.
WHB Kansas City.
The Zone with Jason Anderson.
I can only get mad at 4 things in life. It was 3. This is the 4th. Golf, my wife, Oklahoma State, and now that pun name game that nobody can get.
Weekdays from 10 to 2 on Sports Radio 810 WHB.
Mick Shaffer of KSHB 41 in studio with us here for the hour in the zone. No Jason Anderson, just myself, Joshua Brisco, Beards McFly on the other side of the glass, and Mick. Jason will be back in tomorrow. Mick, I wasn't going to ask you about your kids, your wife, golf, or the pun name game, but Oklahoma State didn't do you a lot of favors.
Last night?
Yeah. It seemed like you were in a bad place just based off the tweets.
If you had watched the last half of that season, you knew that was coming for Oklahoma State.
Felt like it, right?
It was as bad as expected, and kind of like the Oklahoma game, the West Virginia game. Like, it should have been a blowout, but I guess Gundy coached his way to like a reasonable looking score. But that was a lopsided affair against a bad Wisconsin team. We were just sitting there like, man, thank goodness Wisconsin's horrible. Otherwise, this would be a blowout.
Well, at least your coach didn't try to take anybody's credentials for asking about coaching moves after the game. That would have been embarrassing.
What a D move. What a D move. And I like Gundy for the most part. And look, I defend the kind of like huffiness to like answer that question right after. Say, no, we'll deal with that later.
Right.
And I get with him getting upset about it, but to pull that move, like, we're going to take your credential. We're going to cut you out.
We have to cut you out.
What a joke.
So that's exciting. That's got to make you feel good about the general state of the program.
That Oklahoma State was 5-0, ranked around 10. Might have been top 10, might have been 12, 13, something like that. 5-0, path to the playoff with a 2-touchdown lead on TCU in the fourth quarter. That happened this season. We were there this season. They lost that game. They bounced back, beat Texas, and then just a downhill just collapse after that. Quarterback was hurt. Quarterback was never really great to begin with. I don't know how an FBS program of that level, which is a top 15 perennial program, has that bad of a quarterback situation. I don't know how it's possible. But they got there. Damn it. They got there. It's funny. The defense actually, the first 2 months of the season, gave up like 31 points a game. And they were like 6-1. The defense got better. Averaged 24 points per game allowing the rest of the way. And they went 1-5.
It's just there is a deep college football pain within that feels so specific to that type of ineptitude. Meanwhile, I have just received news that Devin Booker will miss at least 4 weeks with a left groin strain. So, if anybody wants to put... right now it's peppermint mocha creamer in my coffee. If I could just get a couple shots of bleach.
I was going to say cyanide.
Yeah, I mean, that's pretty extreme, but yeah, I mean, just some... You know what else? You know what I can say now? My groin's not going to work for the next 4 weeks either. In solidarity. Thank you. He'll be reevaluated in 4 weeks.
Yeah. What's their record?
I don't remember. It doesn't matter.
My son caught me up on the NBA a little bit last night after I saw that Luka Doncic went for 60, 20, and 10.
Uh-huh.
That's unbelievable. And
yeah,
just
that's
the way it happened for him to tie up the game like that was unreal.
Unbelievable.
So he got me up to speed a little bit on the NBA.
Do you are you familiar with the way that Luka Doncic entered the league? Kind of what the situation was at the top of the NBA draft at that point?
The Suns pass him up?
Well, so
something like that?
Something like that. Yeah, something like that. Something like that for sure, something. So the Suns had the number 1 overall pick in that year's draft. Robert Sarver, disgraced owner who's now finally selling, appeared to really like the fact that DeAndre Ayton was an Arizona kid. He spent his 1 year of collegiate basketball at Arizona, so that was really in his favor. take the big man over the scorer.
Yeah.
I mean, when has that not worked in the modern NBA?
They've already got Devin Booker. They don't need another wing ball
yeah.
handler.
No. Why would they need Luka? You could say, well, I guess that, that makes... And how much do you know about the European guy and the level of competition he's been going up against? The Suns' head coach at that point was a man named Igor Kokoskov, who was Luka's head coach in Europe. And they took the 7-footer.
Wait, that was an NBA coach at one time?
Igor Kokoskov, I think, got about a year and a half in Phoenix. Does that sound right, Beards?
I've got their page pulled up.
He was there for a good time, not a long time, and it also wasn't a good time. He was just there for a time.
He was head coach for 1 year. He was 19 and 63.
Wow.
I
never heard that name.
Just hired him, and then they passed on Luka.
So, the one thing that this does leave for me, and it's good to have a lane, right, in media. You want to have something that you can really have. Something that's really coming easily to me in this point of the media landscape is that I get to be the world's only Luka Doncic hater. I wake up in the morning, I hate Luka Doncic. I lay my head down at night, I hate Luka Doncic. I look at the Phoenix Suns and I hate Luka Doncic. I look at Robert Sarver and I hate Luka Doncic. So for me at this point, he could literally be Michael LaJordan. I'm adding the La in the middle because he's also LeBron. He could be those two combined.
That's good. I mean, we know that Jason's going to listen to this eventually.
I'm trying to pad the reaction when he gets back. We already talked about Ryan O'Hearn without him today. That was a shocker. I got a slash line for you, by the way. It's going to blow your mind.
Can't wait.
He could be the greatest basketball player in the history of this planet. He won't be because he's a fraud. But if he was, I would still be here on my little plot of land where my team said, we'll take DeAndre Ayton, who's a fine basketball player. He's a fine player. Max contract. Whoop-de-doo.
Doesn't like the head coach at all. Wow.
Yeah, I don't even have the energy to be like, hey, Beards, mark that, you big idiot.
I've been off a week. I'm still getting the swing of things.
I wish Luke could be off a week. And by a week, I mean a career. Just go, take your money. Go play, go eat nachos. Seems like it's the other favorite thing of his, other than ripping out my heart and making me eat it.
And recovery beers.
Well, and then
dipping it in queso.
Hold on, I mean,
eating it again.
He scored 60 points and was lucky to win the game.
Yeah, the
Mavs are not great.
My actual that tweet that's like Shohei Ohtani pitched 7 innings of 2-hit ball and hit a home run.
How'd he do in October?
The first player to do that since Tungsten Armo Doyle in 1904, and the Angels lose to the Tigers 5-2. That tweet is actually my perpetual Luka well that I can go back to. They did it against the Knicks. Like, do it against a real team. 60, 20, and 10 against the Knicks is like 25 and 7. There's nothing to be proud of there. It's the New York Knicks. It's an average game against a fake team.
What was it? Like, Embiid went for like 50 last night, right? And they lost?
I think he had 48, against the Wizards, who are not good.
Real team.
Not good.
True MVP, Joel Embiid.
This is all my son catching me up. I learned that the Celtics have the best record in the league.
Yeah, they do.
24-10, which I would feel like that wouldn't be the best record.
Not that great of a record.
It was better than that, but their offense went in the toilet for like 3 games there.
Well, then also I learned that Tatum and Brown, who's becoming a star,
has been,
are like two of the maybe the best pairing in the NBA.
Yep.
They both score 30 together on a regular basis.
I don't want to talk about the Celtics being good, the Suns being bad, and Luka being an alien. This is the opposite of what's supposed to happen.
Man, totally Rudy. We're here to talk about Luka or Jokic.
Listen, you brought up Oklahoma State football.
Yeah, I know.
Inadvertently, I had to go back to the Suns. I didn't know we were going to go down this route.
I just can't. I did the Booker news, and I'm really the wind's out of my sails. I wanted to talk to you about bowl games, though, because we just...
I've watched 3 this year. You know which ones?
Oklahoma State, maybe Little Mizzou.
The Guaranteed Rate Bowl, which, how bad is it when it's just the sponsor? You're not even like, it's not its sponsor and then the name of the bowl, like Peach or Sugar or Cotton or even Liberty or Independence, whatever.
Gasparilla.
Mid-tier. Yeah, that's just a sponsor as well.
No,
right?
That's the Pirates.
Yeah, that is the Pirates.
It was
that's right,
something else, Gasparilla Bowl. I don't remember what.
Agreed. And so it's just the Guaranteed Rate Bowl. Are you dry shaving me? Nobody knew where it was. They played on a baseball field in Phoenix, and everybody was falling and slipping. What is it with the dry air and the turf in the Phoenix area with the sporting fields? They're horrible.
Guarantee because they're trying to play sports in a desert, and their solutions aren't very good.
Turf down, boys. Here we go.
The guaranteed rate, I think, are they also the White Sox stadium sponsor? I'm
something like that.
I think that might be right because I just remember their logo. This is something your brother's
What kind of
annual
rates?
breakdowns are great.
Yeah, he does those.
Guaranteed rate, the logo is a big downward pointing red arrow. And so it's really horrible imagery for like your bowl game that looks like your stock is plummeting.
Yes, it is the White Sox.
It was plummeting last night. And so that's how bad it was. It was just nobody knows where it is. At least if you say like Poinsettia, I'm like, okay, yeah, I know that's like in San Francisco or something like that, or San Diego. I don't know, California somewhere. Guaranteed rate, so bad. I don't know where I was going with that. Oh, so I watched that bowl. I watched the Gasparilla Bowl, and I watched the Bourbon Bowl on Christmas Day.
Oh, no.
Per Adam Schefter and a bunch of other people, the quarterback for the Raiders for the next 2 weeks, Jared Stidham.
Wow.
Baylor.
I saw that there was a lot of line movement on this game.
And Auburn?
What's
Was
it
Baylor
like?
and Auburn?
I don't. I just remember his legendary stretch in New England.
Yep.
I think the whole point of that is to make sure Derek Carr doesn't get hurt and to avoid having to guarantee him injury guarantees. With the speculation I saw earlier today.
Him?
That's exactly right. They're trying to avoid having to pay him his guaranteed rate bowl.
Why would they announce that before the Chiefs game? Chiefs can't defend a backup quarterback. It's like, oh, man, well, we didn't prepare all week long for this guy that's obviously nowhere near as good as the starter. So, hey, what can we do?
Okay, let's play 3D chess here.
By the way, you didn't hear. I watched the Bourbon Bowl.
Yeah. You said that, and I was going to but then the breaking news.
Do you know what the Bourbon Bowl is?
I imagine it was your cup.
Oh, my God. Do you watch any movies? You ever seen Waterboy? Oh, my God. Beards? Help me out here.
I've seen it, but it was like a long time ago. And it was once.
You guys.
I thought it was just
That is
okay.
a Adam Sandler classic. They play in the Bourbon Bowl at the end. Him and the Fonz. Henry Winkler's the head coach, Mr. Coach Klein.
The Raiders don't have another quarterback on their roster. I was thinking they could bring the backup to Jarrett Stidham to the Chiefs game, Week 18, really add a little wrinkle to it.
Yes.
Don't actually have another quarterback. Have a couple on the practice squad, Chase Garbers and Bryce Cosby. Not Crosby, Cosby.
I've heard of some of these guys.
The quarterback practice squad list is where I lose the plot. No, I've got a real big Adam Sandler shaped sort of void in my movie watching, which is hard to even see because of all the other voids in my movie watching. But there's a really specifically, maybe my parents were just never Adam Sandler fans. I don't know.
I mean, yeah, but you haven't lived with your parents for a while now. You can make your own decisions. You could watch whatever movie you want, Josh. You can go out and buy a cake. You can eat it all. You can eat your whole cake anytime you want. You're an adult.
So whenever I want to watch an R-rated movie,
anytime,
I don't have to text my mom.
They're in Florida.
Yeah, but she still knows.
No, I text your mom all the time, and she let me know you don't have to.
She said that to you?
Yes.
So
she whispered it.
Because Santa always knows when I'm sleeping, when I'm awake. And your mom knows if you've been bad or good, so be good. Those were the lyrics that she sang as a child to me.
But watching Adam Sandler movies is good. It's not bad.
Oh, really? Okay. Yeah. Well, that's a whole different twist on this. I'm glad we finally started talking about bowl games. Mysteriously, Mick, we went through the entire show yesterday. We never talked about the Gasparilla Bowl once. Never came up.
That was what day?
Yesterday, Tuesday. We didn't have a show Monday.
No, but the Gasparilla Bowl was Thursday? 23rd, right?
Yes, it was. Yes,
Friday. It was Friday.
It was on Friday. Friday night. Yesterday, Jason on remote, but Jason was on the show. Never came up. Why do you think that was? Mick, your thoughts?
Because there's nothing really to talk about that game.
Is Jason also dodging Kansas football? We'll get to Liberty Bowl in a second.
That's coming up.
Did that move the needle for you? I genuinely did want to check in again on your. We talked about it a little bit on Friday, I guess, on your bowl game heat check. But we talked about this yesterday, specifically looking at K-State and KU. They're playing SEC teams, and for once, it just means more for the Big 12 because I could actually build the argument for why KU and K-State have something kind of riding on these bowl games, but I wasn't making that argument for Missouri, even though it was probably true. I just feel like there's been just some bad vibes continuing to circle right there. I'm actually interested if any part of your perspective of Mizzou football changed at all on Friday with that game going the way that it did, or is it just firming up the fact that you know exactly what Mizzou football is?
It was an uninteresting bowl in an uninteresting place against an uninteresting team.
It's a pretty interesting place.
Tampa?
Yeah, it's all right.
I guess so.
Outside Tampa's okay.
Yeah, but I mean, it's like
that's the only part I had any disagreement
with. A couple other destinations in Florida you go to before
that's true.
Tampa.
No, that's fair.
Maybe 3 or 4 if you want like the Gold Coast.
It's probably 6 or 7 now that you say
Destin
that.
And anyway, so no, I watched it. Of course, I cheered for the Tigers. That did not work. Trying to think if that's kind of like a theme. The teams
who won the Bourbon Bowl?
South Central Louisiana State University.
Were you rooting for them?
Yeah, but I knew they were going to win. They win every time you pop it in.
And just never an upset at all?
It was a huge upset because they beat Louisiana, who was undefeated.
Are you betting on these before you watch them now? Or you
realize the movie still, right? It was a movie.
I mean, if it just happens every time, I'd feel like there's probably some odds on that you could get.
No, it wouldn't be odds. It'd be the opposite if everybody knew the outcome.
It'd be evens?
Sure. It would be. I mean, I'm sure there'd be idiots that took Louisiana. Gave the points.
Beards, you're going to have to bring your IR news to I can't find any of that. I got 100 tabs open, man.
From Vincent
Van Gogh, crazy.
Last name.
Okay.
As we alluded to the possibility on Monday, the Raiders are shutting down Derek Carr for the final 2 games. Denzel Perryman and Chandler Jones also to the IR.
Okay. So you won't see either of them.
So that game is going to be a blowout.
Who was that reported by?
Vincent last name. Very confusing last name.
Weird last
name. You
name.
can check out the retweet of it, though, on the Arrowhead Report Twitter account.
That's great, Beards. I appreciate that. Who was who reported it?
Vincent last name.
What's his last name?
Bonsignori.
That wasn't so hard. I just needed you to take a swing at it.
Another downfall, another drawback of having the 17th game, which is so stupid. You have teams like the Raiders who are shutting it down earlier.
Yep.
2 and 3 games left, whatever.
You end up with teams who are out of it, who are trying to protect their future offseason financial moves, and teams who are basically out of it, who are more or less, if not completely, locked into where they are in the standings going into the playoffs. It creates a meaningless football.
Along those lines, Raiders head coach Josh McDaniels on the team's quarterback situation. Quote, "There's a lot to be sorted through once the season is over."
Oh, okay.
Does he think he's going to be there to do it? That would be my. I'm guessing Mark Davis will give him another year, but what an absolute tire fire. Can we talk about the Liberty Bowl? Because we should. And coverage begins at 3 o'clock right here on Sports Radio 10 WHB. Seemed like you had a hot take.
KJ Jefferson is playing. I'm taking it for Arkansas. He's not an opt-out.
You said that confidently. Yeah.
Track.
Yeah.
The quarterback.
Yes.
He's going to be a problem against a defense that's not quite there yet. Let's be honest. KU is in a bowl game because of their offense. And because they got to play Oklahoma State in the back half of the season. That's how they got their 6th win. He'll be a problem. And so figure that problem out. I think KU has a good chance of winning. I like that Leipold's had a month to prepare for this, and you got to believe that KU is going to be taking this. Even if Arkansas is taking it seriously, KU's going to be taking it more seriously because, wow, here we are. This is a bowl game. We haven't experienced this in a long, long time. I can't remember the spread on this one.
It was -3 last I looked, but then I think it ended up being, it's now down to 2, I believe.
Wow. Okay.
And there was one, I grabbed this off Athlon Sports, which our friend Braden Gall is a part of. Of Jefferson's top 4 statistical targets in the receiving corps from the regular season, just 1 will play in Memphis. Tight end Trey Knox, receiver Kentron Jackson Jr., both transferred. Jadon Hazelwood entered the draft. Matt Landers is slated to play. So basically, the short version there is that you've got a problem at quarterback, but a lot of the main weaponry around him from the regular season won't be there for this game.
I kind of like KU money line.
I kind of do too. So this goes back to my my Big 12 it just means more take from yesterday.
Of course, the Big 12 is 0-2 so far in bowl games.
Well, but in this case, I am specifically buying into KU and K-State, and also specifically opposite Alabama and Arkansas.
And here's a thought. The entire conference isn't going to play the same way in every game against every team.
Exactly.
And the SEC is great, but it's like, okay, it's a handful of really great teams, and then there's some teams like Arkansas and, to be honest, Missouri, who goes out against a middle-of-the-road ACC team and lays an egg.
Right.
And so conferences are arguing conferences has always been the bane of my existence.
Oh, I didn't know this was a real.
It's number 6 on my list.
Six, though.
Yeah,
okay,
6 things
right.
now. I hate.
In the top half dozen, but not top 5. That's big. It's not making the Mount Rushmore. Not even close. But it's the second Mount Rushmore. No, that's. I specifically think for KU and K-State, there is something to be accomplished by winning these games. Which is often not the case for bowl games. It depends on how if your season ends in a whimper, that bowl game kind of feels like a whimper. But there's a chance for this to be an exclamation point on the end of these seasons, for KU to win and to have a winning record on the year, to say, hey, we went to a bowl game. Hi, I'm Lance Leipold. I just got here, and I've got a new stadium coming. My whole staff's making more money, and I got a Liberty Bowl trophy over there. Would you like to come play in Lawrence? They can say a lot of that without winning this game. But so even when Daniels was hurt, even when the wheels weren't coming off, but KU was finally losing football games for once, which we had suddenly not grown accustomed to. The vibe of KU football, the era was always pointed in the right direction. And to continue that by winning this game tonight, I just think it would I know that there are fan bases that could chuckle at this. It's a borderline fairy tale season. And I know that winning the Liberty Bowl is not winning the college football playoff or winning a New Year's Bowl, but they are playing in a bowl game after Christmas. And being able to celebrate that as a legit victory in the final game of your season, that means something to me.
It absolutely does. And, I mean, taken in the context of the last 13 years, it is a fairy tale season. You get to 7 wins. They literally went probably, 5 years or 6 years with only 7 wins during that stretch. And so it would be. And look, it's not for both KU and K-State, it wouldn't necessarily be, okay, we got to wait for, another 9 months till the start of next season to see the gains here. I mean, K-State is turning in probably their best recruiting class ever, or pretty close to it. We'll see what happens with it, but they knocked it out of the park this year. And you still have that February signing period to pick guys up. You got, hey, we just beat Alabama. By the way, if you're watching that in the Sugar Bowl, right? We just beat Alabama in the Sugar Bowl. Come on up. We got Avery Johnson, a 4-star quarterback coming in. We've got all these other guys coming in. 4-star Jordan Allen from Olathe South. Let's build this thing up and make this class even better. Same for KU in that, okay, you get 7th win here, you got momentum, and then all of a sudden start bringing these guys in to KU Texas basketball at Allen Fieldhouse. To Baylor's in town. Okay, we're gonna bring these guys in. Take a look at this atmosphere for KU basketball. It's a different sport, but that doesn't matter. It is a terrific recruiting tool. So you have that little bit of football momentum, and if it's some of these kids that need that little push over the edge, you bring them into Allen Fieldhouse. All of a sudden, February comes, and okay, this class gets even better. So I think you're exactly right. There are big gains to be made from winning both these teams, and you can hang the whole the SEC, hang your hat on the old. Hey, we took care of the bell cow of college football in the last 15 years, and be a very good Arkansas program that people would have thought would have boat raced KU going into the year.
Having head coaches, having coordinators hired away to be head coaches.
Yes.
Now it was Barry Odom, but it still counts. If that was a different team, we would still acknowledge that. I agree 100%, and also I'm just agreeing with you, and agreeing with me, and I'm agreeing with you. It's really just a nice, pleasant radio segment we're having here. But I think it's even more true for K-State for all of those. I mean, for KU, it's all the vibes. For K-State, it's. Is this thing on? Are you hey, I know that Alabama isn't in the college football playoff this year. Weird, isn't it? Well, we got them in the postseason anyway. The Sugar Bowl is one of those bowls that has the long-standing sort of pedigree attached to it. Rightfully so.
You mean it's not like the Guaranteed Rate Bowl?
Not necessarily the Guaranteed Rate Bowl.
Just a little bit above.
It's really close. They're all bowl games. I mean, that's important. Bowl games are always fun. But
the Tostitos Bowl?
Hold on. Don't go slandering the Tostitos Bowl now. Any food stuff in a bowl It
Are we not
works for me
calling it
again.
Fiesta Bowl anymore? Is it just the Tostitos Bowl?
I think it's the Tostitos Fiesta Bowl.
And
Is
you
it
know-
still the Tostitos Fiesta Bowl?
Well, and this could totally derail us, so I'm going to say it. First of all, you know there's 2 Cheez-It Bowls, right?
Yes.
Did you hear about the spokesman?
There's the Cheez-It Bowl, and then there's the Cheez-It Citrus Bowl.
Yes. Did you
Don't
hear
mix your Cheez-Its and
about
citrus.
one of the spokesmen from Cheez-It?
Oh, yes.
What he said, one Cheez-It is a Cheez-It. Multiple Cheez-Its are not Cheez-Its. Those are called Cheez-It crackers, and that doesn't make any sense to me whatsoever. And I really just, like everybody else, I want to push back against this.
We have to talk about this. You're so right. Thank you, Mick, for bringing this. I should have written this down when I saw it. Just to restate what Mick just said. This is courtesy of Carter Carrolls, a beat writer for Florida State, who tweeted the shocking news. Quote, one Cheez-It is a Cheez-It, while 2 or more of the Cheez-It are called Cheez-It crackers, not Cheez-Its.
That's the stupidest thing I've ever heard.
This is from a Cheez-It Bowl representative. I think this might be a Mandela effect thing. I try to pluralize it with a Z, even when I'm like writing it down. I think of them being called Cheez-Its with a Z. I don't know if I'm just thinking Ritz.
The Z is on the cheese, right?
No.
It's not CHEEZ?
Yes, sorry.
Yeah, okay.
Yes. It's CHEEZ-IT. And I go double Z, maybe, if it's the Ritz thing. But never in my life have I ever said the sentence until today, Cheez-It crackers.
Yeah.
That's insane. That's an alien language. That doesn't make any sense.
It absolutely is.
Can we change this? Is this just they didn't trademark the plural version? Can we trademark the plural version? And can we go to the Cheese Nips people and say, hey, good news.
Yeah.
Let's rebrand. You're Cheez-Its now.
Yeah.
Plural. We need to solve this.
We do. It'd be like, okay, that is a Pringle. Those over there are Pringle corn chips.
Pringle rehydrated potato granules. I don't think you can even call those chips, right? You can't call them the potato chips. Are they potato crisps?
That's a house. Your house and the house next to it are home dwellings.
House units.
All right, are a pair of home. Pringles aren't made with real potato. The recipe calls for dehydrated processed potatoes. The FDA ruled in 1975 that Pringles could only be called chips if they are provided a disclaimer identifying them as potato chips made from dried potatoes. So Pringles scrapped that idea and renamed them potato crisps.
Yeah, way to make things difficult, Cheez-Its. You're a lot like Southwest Airlines. You were held to this high standard. And then all of a sudden, you both blew a 3-1 lead.
It's actually just Southwest Airline. Mick Shaffer, KSHB 41. Shot clock reviews next.
Follow the show on Twitter at J810Anderson, at JB Brisco, at Beards McFly, and at Sports Radio 810. The Zone with Jason Anderson.
Go next to Mick Shaffer. Go ahead, Mick.
Sorry, it's actually Mackenzie.
Weekdays from 10 to 2 on Sports Radio 810 WHB.
Mick Shaffer at KSHB in for the hour here with us on The Zone. No Jason Anderson today. He'll be back in tomorrow. We'll have the full crew together, but I'm just Joshua Brisco with Beards McFly on the other side of the glass. We'll do shot clock reviews in a second. I hope this isn't your shot clock review, Mick, but have you ever been given $1.4 million and then fired about a month and a half later?
No, but I would love for that to happen.
Me too. I keep trying to figure out a way that I could have that money guaranteed to me and then have someone say, hey, never mind, we don't actually want you to do that job, but you get to keep the money.
We talked about this before to where, like, if I was given a guaranteed contract for like 3 years or whatever for $10 million to be a head coach, I would do the litmus test of like, you know what, instead of like saying, hey, man, I'm rolling into work at 4 a.m. and I'm working around the next day till 5 a.m., but I'm somehow getting back to work at 4 a.m. that same day. Yeah, I'm adding hours a day. You know, that whole deal, like, well, I'm ignoring my family, the whole life, and my staff, they can't do anything.
I've never met my daughter. She's 12.
4-hour workdays. 4-hour workdays is what I would try out. And it's like, all right, we're going to golf beforehand.
Yeah.
Okay, we'll do practice. That'll be fun. We'll kind of look at some game film of the other team. We'll all got to dinner, right? And you go home, see your friends. I would try that out. It would, I'm sure, fail miserably.
Yeah.
But I would be guaranteed that $10 million and have a great life for probably a year before I got fired.
Instead of film study, you're handing everybody like a movie to watch.
Yes,
here's
exactly.
Waterboy. I would watch that if I was being paid salary
Yes.
on that staff of soon to be fired coaches.
And then maybe I would like maybe on the backside of that, I would be able to recruit and bring in some high level talent who just wants to like, man, I don't want to work 12-hour days. And this guy's got a 4-hour work day, and he's all cool, and we're just going to roll the ball out there, see what happens. We'll probably lose a lot, but maybe if I can get enough talent there, I would that'd be a draw for really good players. So yeah, that's my plan.
I think trying to do this in football would be one of the quickest places to be outed as a fraud. How long do you think you could get away with it in baseball or basketball, though? And which one would you have a better chance of doing?
Baseball.
I think it's baseball. I thought you might say basketball, Beards.
Oh, no, it'd be way easier in baseball.
I think so. Way easier in baseball.
There's just so many games. I might get bored and quit.
You just let all the position coaches do their thing, and then like during the game, you just sit there, you chew some gum, and then you go, okay, bring in the next guy.
And how
then
often
you're good.
after spring training, you never really have practice after that.
Yeah.
You have some BP.
That's a good point.
You work out on your own, but it's rarely are you out there on the field with the whole team, instructing, hitting fungos, rotating to drills. No, it doesn't happen. No PFPs. It's baseball, I think.
I'd like Skipper, what was the reason for that substitution there in the 7th inning? Yeah, it just felt like it.
I could walk in like a Jeff Saturday. I could walk into an NFL team and be the head coach for a week and get a win. Absolutely.
I agree with that, I think.
Because you have so many coaches and players, professionals in place.
Yeah.
To where it's like, I'm going to guys, do what you did last week.
Yes.
Right? When you beat the Jags. Yeah. Okay.
You guys keep doing what you're doing, and if it's 4th and 4
here.
or less, we're going for it. That's all I'm adding.
That'll be you.
No kickers.
Yes.
Hey, kicker, punter, holder, you're all fired. We're adding 3 more wide receivers, and we're going for it on every 4th down. But other than that, just keep it up.
You'd like that's how my son's high school does it. They at least the last couple of years, they have the quarterback's been the punter, and so when they do punt, they just back him up like 8 yards, and he just punts it away. But a lot of times,
quarterback sneak time, baby.
Well, a lot of times you have to honor that. Okay, that quarterback's still up at the shotgun. Mm-hmm. They have offensive personnel out there. A lot of times they don't get a guy back, and it's not a great punt. But if it's 30 yards, it rolls another 10 or 15. Hey, that is a great punt.
Okay, so my next level here is Patrick Mahomes should spend this entire offseason training how to punt. Who among us thinks he wouldn't at least be pretty good at it?
He would be great at it.
He's good at everything.
Yes.
So if he could just become the punter, he can also work on holding. because when Patrick Mahomes is your holder, when are you going to believe that ball's ever actually staying on the ground? I'm never going to believe it. So certainly defenses aren't going to. And now your only options on 4th down are a Patrick Mahomes punt or a Patrick Mahomes play with just an extra 10 yards of space between him and the line.
He's one of the best decision makers we've ever seen in the NFL. To where maybe he's got his peripherals going, and he catches the punt, and he sees, okay, those guys are going back. They think we're punting.
Yeah.
And I run to the line of scrimmage and does the little dance of like, okay, I'm going to run for this first down, or no, I'm going to punt it.
He would have all of that space to work with, running up to the line of scrimmage, keeping his eyes downfield. Now all of a sudden, Marcus Kemp just caught a 75-yard touchdown. Does anyone have Andy Reid's phone number? I keep trying to get it, and people keep telling me, no, Josh, you can't have it. I got a great idea for him, though. Someone please let him know. Also, it's time for Shot Clock reviews. I give that a 10 out of 10. But beyond that, I'm not sure where we're beginning. Are you guys ready? Do you want me to go first so I can buy some time? Okay, very good. Well, I'll do that because Renee and I watched Glass Onion, the Knives Out sequel. It's on Netflix right now, and I'll just give you the sticker warning at the front end. It is 2 hours and 20 minutes long. I got a little tired by the end of it because it was late. I'm making that a precursor. I enjoyed it very much. There are not a lot of high-budget murder mystery movies being made in 2022. The more I can get, the better. I enjoyed it a little less than the first one. I just think the setting overall and that first one was so warm, so enticing, so many little moving parts. I found myself a little more enticed by that one than the sequel, but I'm still giving it a 7 out of 10. Beards, what do you got for me?
I'll just go ahead and review my time off dealing with COVID and also some other stuff.
Okay.
So COVID, not fun.
No.
A lot of coughing, a lot of mucus, a lot of throwing up because of the mucus.
Gross. Bad.
And then while doing all of this, we were also painting the rest of the house. Which, finally had some time to do that because, I wasn't in all week. So that was nice. We got all of that done pretty easily. Then the pipes froze. That wasn't fun.
No.
Had to have somebody out there for that. That wasn't ideal. Everything's good, though. Oh, fine. I'd give it like a 6 out of 10.
Oh, 6?
That was
Wow.
a 6 out of 10? What on earth is a 5?
I had time off.
So a 5 would be all of that happening, but you're still here.
Apparently, death happens at a 4, apparently.
Yeah, I'm really nervous. 2 is eternal damnation in the hell pits of fire. I don't know what a 1 would... And 1 is being forced to watch baseball.
Really bad.
Guaranteed rate.
I just had a sore throat and coughed.
So. The mucus barf really...
That wasn't great.
That would have gotten me...
That was early, and that was like a day.
That mucus... If I ever barf because of mucus, that's making my entire month a 2 at best. But you're built different,
Hey,
Beards.
Mick, you want to go?
Let's go. I'm going to review having my kids watch the Best in Show trilogy on Christmas Day. All right, if you're not familiar with the Best in Show trilogy, that's what I call it. Best in Show. It's a mockumentary with some great actors: Parker Posey, Fred Willard, Christopher Guest, Eugene Levy, Catherine O'Hara. It is the best of the 3. We also watched The Mighty Wind, which is the second best of the 3. And then there's Waiting for Guffman, which is good, but kind of slower than the other 2. I give it the third best of the 3. And overall, we had a great time. I give it the blue ribbon, which is what you win when you win a dog show.
Can I blow your mind, Mick?
You've seen it?
I've seen Best in Show. I've not seen... I didn't know that there were 2 spiritual sequels.
I've seen Guffman, but a long time ago.
I believe Guffman was first, and then Best in Show, and then A Mighty Wind.
Okay.
And so A Mighty Wind is about folk singers. Best in Show is about dog shows. And Waiting for Guffman is about a small-town repertory theater.
Do they all have the same or similar cast?
Yes.
Okay.
Oh, absolutely. Like Parker Posey's in all 3. Eugene Levy's in all 3.
Catherine O'Hara's at least in A Mighty Wind and Best in Show.
Yes. I can't remember the Guffman cast. Jane Lynch is in a couple of them. She's great. You have Larry Miller, who's just hilarious. Fred Willard's in most of them.
You watched everybody SCH.
Ed Begley Jr.
SCH Beards. You watched Schitt's Creek, right?
Yes.
Okay.
They're a great tandem together because
a great tandem.
Yes. They're a couple in A Mighty Wind. They're a couple in Best in Show as well.
Catherine O'Hara and Eugene
Levy.
I always want to. I think I say Dan. Yeah. I think I say Eugene Levy and Dan Levy for some reason.
I don't.
That's
might
father
be Levy.
son.
It's Levy,
I don't.
Right? Yeah, Levy.
I think.
Levy?
I
Levy.
think. I've
heard Levy. I think it's Levy.
I was really hoping you'd have the
Eugene
confidence
Levy,
of it.
Yeah.
It's Eugene Levy sounds better, but Dan Levy sounds better. I don't think we've solved much of anything, but we gave our reviews, and we can even take a break before like the last possible minute in this segment. This is so strange. We have so much room for activities.
What are we doing next segment?
I just thought maybe you would. I did a movie reference that I thought you would be excited about, and then you weren't.
Step Brothers.
And it was like, I haven't seen it, but I knew the reference.
You haven't seen it for real?
haven't seen it either.
God dang it!
Take the show with you by listening live on 810WHB.com, in the 810 mobile app, or by subscribing to The Zone wherever you get your podcasts. The Zone with Jason Anderson.
Back in the day, it was so easy to murder somebody. They didn't have cameras all over the place.
Absolutely.
Nobody had phones. Nobody's tracking anybody. Like, if you got caught murdering somebody, you were just a sucky murderer.
Weekdays from 10 to 2 on Sports Radio 810 WHB.
Sorry, I just saw Eugene Levy's hair in A Mighty Wind, and it...
He's kind of plays a spacey character.
Totally changed my life. Permanently. Forever.
The best thing about A Mighty Wind is that they go the entire movie for the joke of why it's called a mighty wind.
I love that.
They come all together, all the groups at the end, and they sing this song, which was back in the 60s, 70s, and folk music was a huge hit. It was called A Mighty Wind. Blowing change, blowing whatever, and at the end, the mighty winds are blowing. It's blowing you and me. And those are the last lines of the movie as they're all singing. And because the whole time you're like, why is this called A Mighty Wind? And they sing the whole song. The last lyrics of the song are those lyrics, and you're like, "Oh, I see." They went a long way for that joke.
It is a feature length film,
literally to the very end of the movie
to pay off on the last line of the movie. It's kind of like There Will Be Blood, except for that one was probably less funny.
Was that the last line of that movie?
No, but there.
Have you not seen There Will Be Blood?
I have.
Okay.
So what I
don't remember when it was said or if it was said.
I don't actually know if it was said out loud, but just watching There Will Be Blood, it's like 2.5 hours and there's no blood, and then there's some blood at the end.
Yeah.
There
the
becomes
bowling
blood.
alley, right?
There becomes blood in a bowling alley. There is an exorbitant amount of blood at that point, but it just I always that one stuck with me. It was just kind of funny that like, all right, well, where is there going to be blood? How much blood is there going to be? There's a little bit of blood, but there's been more milkshake than blood. The fact that came out in the same year as No Country for Old Men still confuses me.
They're very similar
that was
movies.
A good year for movies.
Yeah, it was.
Bad year for endings, though. I hated the ending of No Country for Old Men.
I can't.
But that's kind of their staple. It's the Coen brothers, right?
Yeah.
They just have bad endings. They just end movies. And
I mean, that one's based off a book, though, so it's not as much theirs.
I wonder if that's how it ended in the book.
Did you read the book, Beards?
No, it's not. It's a Cormac McCarthy book. I stay away from.
Because
why is that?
I don't like his no punctuation thing that he does.
Okay, I didn't know that was the thing that he did.
It's
so
weird.
I'm genuinely asking. There's a whole section on Wikipedia of differences from the novel. I was trying to get the specifics of the ending of it.
The ending is the bad guy. He just randomly gets in a car wreck.
Yeah.
Then he walks away, I think.
That's what I thought, too. Okay,
and then one of the stars of the show, Josh Brolin, you don't really see his death.
Nope.
He's just face down in a pool on a wide shot, and you're like, no way, that's him.
Yeah, this movie came out in 2007.
Never came back.
We've got a 15-year spoiler alert. I think we're good.
And I believe that was the movie where they had three stars, right? You had Josh Brolin, you had
Tommy Lee Jones, and Javier Bardem.
No two of them ever appeared in the same shot at one time.
No kidding. Nope.
The closest they got, they were like doing a gunshot on different sides of a car, but no two of them were ever in the same shot at one time.
Oh, I'm so glad I didn't know that going into it, because that would have. Sometimes you can tell, you know.
Yeah.
I think
there's also no music in it until the very end.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, there were some choices made throughout it. Both of these movies.
Incredible. No Country is one of my favorites ever. It's exceptional.
I have had no interest in rewatching either of them. I kind of felt like they were both movies. I definitely don't think I'll watch There Will Be Blood again. It's just that thing is a slow film.
I watched that one when I was a lot younger, so I've done that before. I'll watch a lot of films.
Yeah, see how they hit you now.
Yeah.
The best what air compressor death scene I think is in No Country. He puts up those forehead and.
I don't have a lot of other nominees from a lot of other movies with air compressor deaths, but that one has a few of my favorites. Maybe just one of my. How many times does that happen? It's multiple times, right? There's multiple air compressors. I think about it every time I see an air compressor now. Congratulations, No Country for Old Men. You accomplished that much. We talked about the bowl games. We've talked about college ball. I mentioned Ryan O'Hearn. Didn't feel like you had a real. I'm sure we'll talk about him again tomorrow and on Friday. I'm sure we'll make another.
I have
round
no
of that.
Ryan O'Hearn take right now.
That's okay. I reserve your right. I'm here to defend your right.
Give
to
me
not
some
have Ryan
slash lines though. It'd be great.
14, 17, 72, 493, 47. X, which is weird. I didn't even know you could do letters in them, and then 19
and pi,
and pi, and then player B is no, I have no slash lines for you. I'd rather talk about the Broncos ever so briefly. Does it matter what happens next, or can we officially go ahead and just say that this was the single most disappointing season in NFL history? I brought the stat. I don't know if I would have read it when you were in at any point a while back, but I brought in the stat of teams who had fired their coach after one season and where their preseason expectations were. There was that one weird Browns team that got overhyped and never were actually very good. But this Broncos team, new head coach, future Hall of Fame quarterback, or at least he was. Huge contract to that guy. Total rejuvenation for the AFC West. 2, head coach is gone. Quarterback is the most washed player we've ever seen.
Biggest punchline in the NFL.
Biggest punchline in the NFL.
So I mentioned earlier the Ringers quarterback rankings thing.
Yeah.
He started at, I think, 6th. Russell Wilson is now 25th.
Oh, that seems high.
Tell me who he's ahead of.
He is ahead of Mac Jones, Gardner Minshew.
Nope.
Oh, God.
Trey
Disrespectful.
Lance. Sam Darnold is 29, and then Desmond Ritter is 30.
If there was a football game being played for my life tomorrow, I'd rather any of those guys be starting, including an injured Trey Lance.
Yes.
I don't know where he's at in his recovery.
24 is Andy Dalton, just for fun.
Oh.
Wow.
Anyway, is that the worst, the single worst NFL season?
If it weren't for the Chiefs, I think
sports
you'd be
history?
32nd. That Chiefs game.
Just that one game alone. I've just never seen anything quite like it. I've seen collapses. I've seen head coaches have terrible first years. Urban Meyer was the biggest punchline in the NFL last year, but this is like taking an entirely new level to me.
Yeah, and it doesn't help that he was kind of like an oddball to begin with. And I don't like people make fun of him for being hokey. I don't mind that stuff, whatever. But the stuff you hear about like his old Seahawk teammates, they can't even reach out to him when they want to talk to him. They have to go through his manager, and they can't ever get a hold of him. They want to reach out and say, but you got to go through his manager. It just
wasn't there a thing today that I saw about how he has like an office and a parking space at the Broncos facility?
Oh wow, an office?
Yeah, I think I had also heard something about an office. Oh, breaking news! The NFL, it never stops.
From Jeremy Fowler, Raiders have benched Derek Carr in part to preserve his health for a potential trade this offseason. Don't want to risk injury. And his market could heat up after the Super Bowl, sources say, though, options to stay on the table. And then I saw something else from Matt Verderam.
I have this from Fowler also saying Carr has a no-trade clause, so if he says no to a deal, that could complicate matters, why a release can't be ruled out either. So the Raiders are essentially, quote, preserving Carr.
And
where would he go?
From Verderam, just really quickly, he said speaking to one high-ranking NFL personnel, they believe the trade for Carr could bring a similar return to what the Eagles got for Wentz. That was 1/3 and a conditional first.
That's too much, but I do think he's probably like the 15th best quarterback in football.
I think he's better than Wentz.
Yeah,
even
definitely.
at that time of that trade.
Yeah, I agree. I also don't know that if he was the Lions quarterback with the Jets quarterback, they would be in playoff spots right now.
So the middle-of-the-road quarterback in the NFL shouldn't garner a first-round pick? I'm asking genuinely because I don't know, like the chart and the scale and all that stuff.
It's tough. It kind of depends on where you think you are at as a team. If you're the Jets right now,
3 firsts.
Alex Smith was 2 seconds, and maybe that's too much in my head. But if someone said 2 seconds for Derek Carr, I'd say, yeah, if you're the Jets or the Lions, I get it. And if you said it's 1 first and a third, I'd say, how dare you overpay that much? That might be a me problem, though. I'm not sure. Mick, thank you for being here.
Thanks for having me.
This has been great. Jason's back tomorrow.
Yeah, right.
Which will be even better. I don't think there's any Southwest flying, so I actually think Jason will be here tomorrow. So we'll talk to you then. Lebo in the program up next. Bye, Mom.
Hey, guys.